Well, we are back, huh? We're back at the 9 Club, everybody. Today, we have a very special guest. Mr. Eli Gesner is with us. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. Yeah.
Hey, good to see you.
Good to see you too,
good
neighbor.
Good to meet you. I don't know. We are neighbors here, and I don't know. Our paths never crossed, I don't believe.
We just learned that we lived in the same building for years and never became friends.
How crazy is that?
Crazy random.
Literally the same building.
Literally the same building. And I used to see him skateboarding and was just like, who's this guy?
Yeah. Poser. This guy don't know nothing. I got a documentary to show him later.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Which we'll talk about. All the streets are silent.
That's correct.
Yes. Amazing documentary about the New York lifestyle with the hip hop crossover, skateboarding and stuff like that through, what was it, through 80? What were the dates through?
That's a good question. I think it was 87 through 97 is
so
what we ended up.
A 10-year span.
I mean, we're being that's for marketing purposes, I'm sure. It's not accurately.
Sure.
Buddy, that's from 86. We can't put it in.
Right.
Who knows? It's just for the poster. But but that's really whatever we ended up with.
Right.
It's not something we set out to do, obviously.
But it's
that's a great time period. Right?
Time period.
Exactly.
Yes.
The what's it called? What am I looking for? The hypothesis of the whole thing is that, it's sort of this moment in time that you can't capture.
Right.
Where I equate it, and also the other people involved, Jeremy Elkin, Dana Brown.
Little fly.
You're not in it.
Did you actually hit that fly right there?
Yeah, Kung Fu. Training for years.
You just said, get out of here, little fly. Little fly. Hey.
I just flew away. I'm like, damn, how do I actually do
Fly
that?
said, hey.
I have some good. Growing up in the streets of New York, you get good at killing flies.
I'm sure he'll be back.
Yeah, we were trying to make sort of like a film based on, like in France they had like Cafe Society or the Harlem Renaissance. It's like these little time periods, I guess Hate Street, kind of like the hippies.
Sure.
These little moments that everyone comes together and culture sort of changes. And I mean, I guess having gone through it, you don't realize you're going through it. You're just like, this is fun, and there's always something great to do, and you like want to go out, and there's always amazing people to meet. So it's, and then later on, you're like, wait a minute, like all this stuff happened.
Totally.
But that's not really for me to say. It really is Jeremy Elkin is the guy who, has the ability to have the perspective to go and make a film like this.
Put the whole story together and have it make sense.
Yeah, I could never do anything like this because I'm too emotionally connected to the material. A lot of the stuff you see in the film, all that stuff just sat in my shelves, VHS tapes, for years. Not even just like the hip hop stuff, but hanging out at the Astor Cube or the nightclub footage, and maybe once in a while a friend would come over, you got to check this out. Look at us skating a jump ramp, and and then you just sit there and kind of like wax nostalgic, like, there's just no perspective. When Jeremy, got a hold of it, he was like, it was almost like a medical autopsy had to be done,
I mean, that's a lot of footage.
That must have been fun to watch through, though, and for Jeremy's side, I guess.
Tell us about him, please.
Yeah, so Jeremy Elkin is a young man from Montreal, Canada, and I got to, I think one kid who was skating for us at Shut about 10 years ago was doing a video. I guess Jeremy Elkin is from, as I said, Canada. He's very polite, as all Canadians are, and was really into, New York City skateboarding culture and street culture. He's like, grew up and enamored with it.
Gotcha.
I'm pretty sure that in the mid 90s, I was seeing a girl. I started dating a girl named Jade Raymond, who has gone on to do amazing things of her own. And she was from Montreal. Oh. And upon going home, I gave her one of our original Zoo York tag boards.
Amazing.
Oh, wow.
And she ended up giving it to maybe another boyfriend of hers who was Jeremy's older brother. So I think Jeremy was a little kid and like saw this skateboard and the tag and didn't know what it was, and that sort of, was my calling card to move to New York and make a film about me.
So he's younger.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So you were just doing a nice thing, giving him a board.
I didn't give him anything. I gave a girl a board.
Right.
Yeah.
And then she gave it to
And
me.
then she gave it to somehow it got back into his sweaty little palms, and then that sort of got him into New York City. And then everyone was, how we all talk about, who's doing what and filming. And there's this kid from Canada who does skateboard videos. And he was, doing parts of, I guess, local New York City skaters. Right. And I guess it was called The Brodies. Do you know this video? I'm sure it's available on YouTube, but he did this video called The Brodies. And then I got the message. The guy who's doing The Brodies is a huge fan of Zoo York and loves your hand style and really wants you to do graffiti titles, like how we did for the mixtape mixtape 2, where I'd write graffiti tags out.
Sure.
So we did the same exact thing for him, but of course much better because he's a competent filmmaker. Okay. And and that was sort of like, he's thank you so much. And they used it on the box. And,
amazing.
Yeah, packaging. And then he ended up sort of living in my neighborhood. So on occasion, I would go and you want to get a cup of coffee? Sure, that's fine. Then
That's fun. Trying to get a couple royalties from the
no, because he's a talented kid.
Yeah.
He goes on to use these really high quality skate videos he's made to get a job as the resident videographer to shoot and edit small or short format docs for Vanity Fair.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So he was in Vanity Fair, and that's kind of like, first of all, that's as high brow as it gets, if you're doing that. But this was also sort of the time where a video, like a 5-minute video piece wouldn't have the cachet. Yeah. It would still be like the cover of Vanity Fair. So I don't know, maybe this is 10 years ago, maybe or so. Also, they just started building the World Trade Center back. Oh, so gotcha. I would Vanity Fair moved their offices in there. So I was like, let's check out the building and go and hang out. Huh. And then he came to LA and I was here and, I was like, we have to hang out. And he was, I can't, I'm too busy. Oh, what are you working on? I'm working for Vanity Fair. Yeah, I know, but what? I can't tell you, but I'm in Malibu. And I was like, give me a break. Like, who are you? You're shooting Harrison Ford? Who cares? Right. Nah, you can't talk about it, man. And so at that point, it makes me think this person's either taking themselves too seriously or we'll see if this is something big.
Sure. Yeah.
So he comes back and what he was shooting, and he sent me drone footage because that was also kind of new. Yeah. And there was drone footage going over Point Doom that he shot or had someone shoot. Now, check out this footage. That's really cool. What are you shooting? Can't tell you.
Okay.
And what he ended up shooting was Bruce Jenner coming out as Caitlyn Jenner.
Oh, wow.
They did an exclusive with Vanity Fair. And, Jeremy had no idea, non-disclosure, is that what it's called?
Yeah. Sure.
It comes
NDA
in,
or whatever?
NDA,
Yeah.
and comes in and has to, here is now Bruce Jenner as a woman, and then revealing to the camera, I used to have closets full of women's clothes, and I'd wear them around the house, and did this amazing job. And I was like, oh, this guy really is a sincere filmmaker, and on top of that, is committed to the craft and is not spilling the beans to me, and all right, this kid is prone to go do something great.
Sure.
And that really kind of, at least as far as my opinion of him, raised the opinion. Also,
Gotcha.
one of the, I guess it would be co-editors at Vanity Fair was Dana Brown, who is the producer of All the Streets Are Silent.
Okay.
And that's how they met and how I met them. I think Jeremy took his leave and went on to go do other things. And I started going to his apartment, and he would come over and see everything that I'd have. My old apartment, which is at the last scene of the film.
You're holding a little fisheye.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was like a museum to Eli, is what
Gotcha.
my friend would call it. But it was, it's like if it was like all the stuff from kids.
It's like Holy Grails. It's like everything's
It's like this.
right.
Yeah,
right.
but it was all stuff that I've accomplished or have accumulated, like the, stuff, and we did Phat Farm and passes from the nightclubs and whatever.
Yeah.
So he came over and was, this stuff is so cool and blah, blah, blah. And somehow he might have brought up something about the Stretch Armstrong show, and I was like, oh, I have it right here. And I had like a drawer of all the VHS tapes, but it was just, and it was not just, I don't want you to think like I'm so smart or so, could see the future where I was like dating everything, like Stretch Armstrong, Method Man.
No time codes.
No time
Okay.
codes. It's all just like, if you look at it, it's just like the workings of a madman, like driving in cars and shooting my friends. And
At least you had some type of force to be filming all this stuff.
Exactly.
A lot of people weren't carrying around cameras filming everything.
it was actually, nowadays kids,
Yeah.
you're not going to relate to this because everyone has a camera and that's all you're doing is filming things, especially like if you go out to a nightclub. Right. Everyone's just filming each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when we were kids, and I started going out to clubs around like 84, 85, when I was like 14 or 15 years old, they used to have to put the giant spotlight on the camera to film people dancing because the cameras were just so bad they couldn't do it, and it was seen as obtrusive. Even in skateboarding, it was seen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It was like not a cool thing, and even in the trailer for All the Streets Are Silent, you can even see like Jeff Pang getting mad at me that I'm filming.
Right.
Still filming Eli.
I was just gonna ask, like, did most of the people just not like you filming them?
They liked me filming them when they were trying to do lines.
Yeah. Because this was what, the early 90s. This was 90, 91, 92.
Yes, there's footage in there from I think the earliest footage in there is from like 86.
Okay.
I got my grandfather's video camera and then stole a camera from school, and and I even made this is another funny tangent. I actually made a little VHS movie with hip hop music that had no name. It's just literally 1980s jump ramp, bonelesses, wall rides, era in New York.
Okay.
And I went and had like one or two audio. I had like a Stetsasonic or like Public Enemy, Big Daddy Kane, just had that playing, and it was just like all New York skating, and it was all the skaters, no titles, just like this music and everyone just skating. And this is how dumb I am, is that I did it on a videotape to videotape and had one tape. And I didn't have the sensibility to be like, I can, now that I've edited this, I can put the original in and make a dub.
Right.
I just had the one fucking tape, and I did my graffiti tag on it, and it was like, people would come over, like, let's watch the tape. And, the whole thing probably was like 6 minutes long,
Yeah.
And, you guys probably know Alyasha Jabrilla Workamore. So he and I were like, compadre bros back in that era. We were both like graffiti writers and like trying to be fly guys, and we're skating in New York City and operating. And, his house in Brooklyn was kind of like the hub, and this is such a dumb story. Okay. It's not a dumb story, but so the Bones Brigade came and did a big tour, East Coast tour, all of them, and somehow Alyasha had a big party at his mom's brownstone in Brooklyn, and I went over there and bring the tape. So I brought over the one videotape. And it was like all the skaters from Brooklyn and New York in his mom's loft with the little 20-inch cathode ray tube and the tape.
Yeah.
And the Bones Brigade were there and like popped it in and played it, and they were like, "Wow, this is so cool!" And it was all of the local New York City skaters. And admittedly, we had, and this is kind of like right before Shut Skates started, or it was just about that same summer. And so there were like, we had like a serious little stash of rippers you know, that ultimately went on to do become Shut, and even some like Aaron Lennox and Jim Kerr and people like that who were like local New York City skaters who didn't get on Shut or didn't want to get on Shut. You know, but we showed it to the Bones Brigade, which was like, whoa. And they were like, this is so rad. Yeah. And then they were all partying and having a good time. And I had to take the subway all the way back home. So I was just like, I'm going to bounce. And they were like, you got to leave the tape. I was like, no problem. Never saw it again.
Wow.
Bones Brigade. If anyone has it, that's the only copy.
Wow.
The footage, it's the only thing. It's lost in the annals of time now.
Wow.
But that might have been sort of like the proto, you know,
Back up your shit.
well, besides that, but the hip hop and skateboarding, although I'm sure, you know, I'm not claiming that was but this is 86.
Sure.
Actually, in the film, there's like a couple of shots around that same time, 86, 87, where we're all skating the jump ramp and you can, we have a boombox. And they're playing we're playing Mr. Magic's Rap Attack. So in New York, they only would play hip hop on Friday and Saturday nights. So everyone had to record the tape, like the Stretch Armstrong show. Yeah, but back then, no radio in New York would play hip hop. That was just like not happening. So we would record, you know, Mr. Magic's Rap Attack and play the cassettes. And while we're skating, they have like they have the world premiere, and it's like world premiere. The first time they're playing this record, nobody beats the Biz. Nobody beats the Biz. That's how old this whole you know thing in New York was. But at that time, we were just we no one skated in New York. I'm sure being a skater was an outcast. You know, you were sort of an outcast everywhere. But in my mind, I mean, if you were in Venice Beach or you're like skating in San Francisco. There's sort of like this is part of our California culture. Yeah. In New York, it was so bonkers that a lot of times we would just, you know, let's skate to Washington Square Park, and then we'd be like 3 or 4 of us skating down the street, and like businessmen with briefcases would just like stop and just watch us. Because it was so foreign, you know.
Like you're some wild animals that they've never seen before.
Right.
You know, like they're on safari.
Yeah.
I want to actually go back in time because
Even more.
Because I want to get a quick synopsis of like how you ended up in New York. Well, you were born and raised there.
Yes.
So, but I mean like in this culture of the hip hop, and because obviously you grew up skating. We were talking before, you were on Z-Boys with the Z-Rollers.
I was.
I don't know if you wanted that on camera, but I'm
No, for
everybody.
sure. I had a full page ad in Power Edge.
See?
Amazing.
Doing a Wally backside grab over a big like Wally hip. It was Apex skating back then. I was very proud of myself.
So how did you even get on this Z-Boy?
So I'm born and raised in New York City.
Yeah.
And you know, when my whole family, this is all on the doc too, but I'll do a different version of it. It's like they were all artists. So I was, you know, basically just, you know, encouraged to be creative and do what you want.
Which is amazing.
That's what you should be doing. The, Neil deGrasse Tyson, he has a really great like little moment he was saying about being in the park after the rain, and there was like a little kid who saw a puddle and was like jumping up and down in the puddle and watching the water splash, and then his mom like stopped him, and he was like, that's the worst thing you could do to a child, you know, because the kid has never experienced this, and they're like figuring out how fluid dynamics work, and you know, gravity, and you know how the body works.
Right. And the mom's worried about tracking all that in the house.
Exactly. Yeah.
Dirty.
Yeah.
Luckily, my parents didn't care about what I tracked in the house.
Okay.
So that's how it was. And because of that, I was a maniac kid. I was like always climbing and doing crazy stuff and going on the roof. We would play like roof tag up on like the tenement buildings where you chase people, and there's like little alleyways. It's not parkour.
You can jump on
You know, it's like
You're not jumping and somersaulting over onto the next.
yeah, but still, it's like, you know, 2-3 foot jump, and it's a 6-story fall. So,
I mean, yeah,
you know, and so I was a wild kid, and didn't really get into skateboarding. But because I could draw, that was like the first thing I was known for. that kind of was the blessing and the curse for me growing up because, you know, that was my reputation. Even from being in grade school. This Eli's the best drawer in school.
Right.
You know, even the teachers are like, you're going to be a great artist one day. So you're like, so why I don't need math?
Yeah, what am I here for?
What am I here for?
Yeah.
So I just sit in the back and draw, you know, that was, you want to wait?
No. We would have.
We're in the hood. We're in the hood.
Our viewers are used to.
They're used to construction, all that stuff.
God.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Well, then screw me. So the graffiti started, and they started bombing the subway trains. And my dad was the dean of kinetic arts at the School of Visual Arts.
Oh.
So, you know, we would see it, and, you know, you would see tags, but then, like, when full car pieces would come through, it's baffling. I mean, it's a lot of hip hop where it comes from is you know, kind of like cocksuredness, making statements about, like, you know, look at me, and you know, I'm gonna do, like, watch, I could do windmills into head spins, you know, to take people out, or I'm gonna battle you being an MC, or check out this cut. And there's the outdoing people in graffiti got to the point where whole entire trains are being done and being sent through the city.
Right.
Besides and I guess if you're a graffiti writer, and at the time I'm like 7, 8 years old, so I'm not a graffiti writer, but my dad's an artist, and the from a professional artist and teacher, is just like, where do they get the paint, the time, the energy? How is this allowed? Is the city paying for this? You know, and where do you do it? I remember we got into this really long conversation waiting for the train one day, because you could see the trains going by on the other side too, so you could sit there and see them going. And my dad was like, "Oh, they sit. They have the paint in a bag, and then they sit and they wait for the train to come around, and then they do a little bit more." And then they wait for the train to come back around and then do a little bit more. That was his hypothesis.
Like they just got a lawn chair.
Yeah,
and a drink.
How else? How else?
Right.
You know.
Right.
So, you know, and that was sort of, you know, a mysterious. There wasn't Subway Art. The book wasn't out yet.
Right.
It was just this weird thing that would happen in the city. And I remember going to the dentist. And I was like 7 or 8 years old, and it was the summertime. And I remember walking up the hill on the Upper West Side, and there was a mailbox, and it was kind of like silhouetted on the top of the hill. And I remember like some kind of like Puerto Rican guy in like a jean jacket, like jean vest, like just walked up and like sat and like wrote his tag and then took off. And like as the sun was setting, and I was like, oh, like people just go and write their names, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And then I was in school, and I graduated out of grade school, and I went to junior high school.
Okay.
So I'm probably like 11.
Yeah,
Something like that.
around that time,
Yeah, 10, 11. And I would draw on my notebooks, and the older kids saw what a good artist I am, which I'm not trying to say I'm a good artist, but they were impressed with what I was drawing.
Yeah, sure.
So the older kids, and they were like the older scary kids, you know, they were like, you know, so these are the kind of, they're bullies, you know, like the older thugs, they're graffiti writers,
Right.
you know, but they were like, you know, in high school looking like grown ass men. And I'm just like a little kid. And they would be like, yo, could you draw me this? And I was like, kind of scared. Am I being threatened to draw this? But then I was like, wait a minute, like I'm hanging out with the older guys, and they're kind of like into me. And like, you know, the other younger kids would be like, are you okay? When they left, you know, and they would like make me draw stuff. And anyway, so I started drawing characters or words or letters, and that kind of led me to meet other people. But these guys were probably not great graffiti writers. Everyone was writing graffiti. It was like a fad,
Right.
You know, so everyone had to have a tag or do whatever they wanted. And I was going to Alexander Robertson, and there was a kid in my class named Chris Green, and he was like, after school, was like, let's go back to my house and play. I was like, all right, we're little kids, and I go back to his house, and he lived in the Westgate Projects. Which was like 3 or 4 blocks from where I lived. And we go in there, and we go up to their apartment. It was like super, you know, a really nice projects apartment. Mm-hmm. We go into their bedroom. I live in here's my bedroom with my brother. It was a 2-bedroom apartment. And I go into their house, and Chris Green's bed was against the window. And then his brother's bed was closer to the door. And then I walk in, and I walk by the brother's bed, and there's all of these photos that have been taped together into panoramic photos. So it's like 3 or 4 photos of whole cars, graffiti whole cars taped on his bed. And I was like, whoa, first of all, I've never seen anyone tape together photos.
Okay.
So that was just mind blowing in itself.
Yeah.
And then I was like, does your brother take pictures of the graffiti? He's like, no, my brother's like Doze from the Rocksteady crew. He's like one of the most famous graffiti writers. And then he goes to his closet and opens up the closet and it's just filled with spray paint. And I was like, oh my God, and like totally geeked out. And then Chris was not interested in it. And he was just like, check out these Star Wars figures. And so we went and did that. But then Doze and the TC5 guys, there was a young fashion store called Wings. There was a couple of them in New York, and airbrushing graffiti t-shirts was like the cool thing in the mid 80s. So they would write like Marisol as Tony with Mickey Mouse or whatever. And they put them in the window, the TC5 guys, and then you'd go buy a shirt and then pay them the money and they'd airbrush what you want. And I just started hanging out around them, and like, hopefully one day I'd become a graffiti writer.
Right. You'd have your own train.
That was the goal. And then, but I was still just, and, I was just like a little kid, and these were grown ass men to me.
Right.
And started meeting other people. And then I kind of became friendly with this graffiti writer named Midas, who lived in my neighborhood, and he skateboarded. So I kind of like, he was closer to my age, was a really, really, like, sincerely one of the best talented artists I've ever seen, in like OCD. Brilliant graffiti writer. I could talk about him for forever. Not as famous as a lot of other graffiti writers, but nonetheless just doing really amazing graffiti pieces on paper and drawings. And so I hung out with him, and then him and his little crew basically forced me, they would skateboard, but they were just skateboarding around. They sort of got into that because of the original Zoo York crew, which is from the Upper West Side. Hayes and Futura and Ollie Mark Edmonds, who was the creator of the Soul Artists of Zoo York. And then, Andy Kessler, of course, rest in peace. And all those guys, they were kind of like older and probably more sophisticated at skating and took off.
Gotcha.
But these were maybe the underlings from them. And I was forced to get a skateboard. How do you do that?
What do you do?
What do you do? There was one skate shop called Dream Wheels, and I like went down there. I saved some money, and I went down to go get my first board, which was a Vision Gator.
Okay.
And got that, and just got into skateboarding from there, meeting all like the original. Actually, that day, I don't think they remember me, but like I definitely that day saw like Bruno Musso and Ian Fromm and Jim Moore and all those kind of like, or those guys were like competent, serious skateboarders. I was like a graffiti writer, like a young wannabe graffiti writer who was really good at doing drawings, and then was kind of like forced into getting a skateboard. And then I went there, and Ian Fromm. Do you guys even know who Ian Fromm is?
I don't know the
I'm not
name.
sure. No, I don't know.
I don't know the name. I know Bruno Musso and all these other guys.
Yeah. Ian Fromm was in the 80s, like the best skater in New York City.
Oh, okay.
He's in the Bones Brigade video, the very first one where they go to New York. He's like the first guy who kind of ollies up onto the wall and then does like a yank off the wall.
Okay.
And he also wrote graffiti like everyone else, and was actually pretty good. And he wrote Thor, IBM crew. And they thought because we both were good graffiti writers that I was going to be taken under the wing of the mighty Ian Fromm, Thor, and was like, "What's up, man?" And he just like hated my guts.
Sure.
And I got kind of like butt hurt and like and also like, graffiti and hip hop is very competitive.
Okay.
So you kind of grow up, and like, I got to battle you. And there's like this weird, like, I got to take you out kind of mentality that goes on. So when I saw him and like, he just totally publicly sunned me in front of like everybody at the skate shop who was giving me my first board. And like, I was like 12 years old, and, and I was like, I'm gonna be a better skateboarder than this motherfucker, man. I was like so, so impressed by him, but like wanted to take him out, and like that just set me off skateboarding.
Hey, sometimes that's all it takes. There's just one
hatred.
Hatred.
Yeah, the upside of hatred.
So you took off, started skating. I assumed you started meeting all the skaters around town. I mean, what are you, 12? You said about
Yeah,
that?
it was 12. Yeah.
I mean, even back then, 12 you're going around the city like, by yourself or with your crew, right? It's not like
well, no, by myself, and it was funny because the graffiti writers uptown who skateboarded, they were just interested in writing graffiti.
That's all they wanted to
and
do.
And drugs.
Right.
Yeah, that's what they were into. Right. And the skateboarding was like secondary.
Right.
Through them, I met a kid from Greensboro, North Carolina, who moved up to New York to live with his mom, named Ben Alvarez, who was Puerto Rican, and he had like a Southern accent from North Carolina. He had a really deep voice and a Southern accent, but he had a vert ramp in his backyard.
Oh wow!
So and that was like what, and so he found himself in New York with no ramps. And was like, what the fuck am I going to do now? Because he was like a total skate punk.
Gotcha.
He had photos of himself doing inverts and the whole nine on a vert ramp. And now he's in New York where there's no ramps.
right, cellar doors.
Was there even like skate parks at all back then?
Hell no.
Yeah, I didn't think
I
so.
would have killed somebody for a skate park. There, like later on, I went and built the ramp at the tunnel, and that was like, we finally have a ramp. It was like the shittiest mini ramp in the whole world. Now it's filled with skate parks, but people would build little ramps here and there. I think like Pepe Martinez and some of those guys built some ramps in the back of Columbia University and stuff like that. So, but it was so foreign. I just even remember the first time like skating a quarter pipe. I'm like, what am I doing? No transition skills.
Right. What was the spot that you actually found everybody at and was kind of the hangout spot back then?
That's a good question. Well, so Dream Wheels, the skate shop, was 1 block from Washington Square Park.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's pretty much how it went. The guys who worked at Dream Wheels felt bad about how Ian treated me.
Okay.
So they took me around down in Soho and like showed me spots. And then I would go to them and they would, just go to Washington Square Park and, just kind of goofing around. But I think in total in all of New York City in the 80s, at the most, I mean, I'm sure there's lots more kids who had skateboards, but there was 40 of us.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right. Small.
And that's, Bruno Musso and the Shuck guys later on and all the aforementioned Rippers and Alyasha and Paul Middleman and so we were just sort of this, like, we were essentially sort of like a loose-knit street gang.
Okay.
I'm sure like the police officers and everybody all referred to us as the skaters, and the skaters didn't mean anybody with skateboards. It was this little group of skaters.
Right.
And we would sort of like meet and, hey, tomorrow when I get out of school, there was a bunch of skaters who went to like LaGuardia school, the Fame School. So we would like at 3:00, we would go there. I did not get into the Fame School.
You didn't get in?
I went to the tryouts. They had art. They introduced art. And I walked in and like...
But everybody's telling you you're so good.
When I walked in, everyone there knew me. There were like all these guys like, oh, you're fucking getting in here, no problem. I was like, yeah. I was so sure I was getting in there. I did the thing. And I think I even had like some like professional work that I did at a certain point. And they were like, you did this? And I was like, yeah. And then I was like... had no care in the world. I'm going to Fame School. It's going to be the best. And I remember going into the admissions director at I was going to Elizabeth Irwin, and I walked in and she was like, oh, you were not accepted. And I was like, you've read that wrong. Right. I literally said that.
Let me
shit.
tell you my name again.
Yeah, there must be a mistake.
Let me double check.
Did they give you a reason why or anything? Or
No.
Wow.
I said no.
I think I had a friend who was going there, and I think her mom asked, and they were basically said that because I had like a professional drawing of something in some like local newspaper.
Oh, like you were published.
Yeah, that kicked me out. That made me not. That's what I was told, but I don't know if that's the case. It was fucking heart-wrenching.
I
And
bet.
it really just like, I was already like a terrible student, and like, but at that point when that happened, I was just like, fuck all this. And I got kicked out of Elizabeth Irwin, and I got kicked out. I went to Humanities, which is like a public high school. I got kicked out of there, and then got arrested and was, I got for skateboarding and graffiti, and it was just like and I got sent away to a boarding school called Reforman.
Reform. All from getting not accepted to fame.
Well, not my dad died, and it was a whole
lot of stuff.
It was a lot of stuff. It was a lot of kid angst.
Sure.
But it's life's a journey.
Hey, it is. It is. I think what's fascinating is, just growing up in the whole New York scene and everything. But then you guys actually, I don't know if you want to jump into like Phat Farm and how all these companies.
New York.
Well, we'll get there. Yeah. I mean, we're trying to build it up.
Yeah.
But I mean, how does, kids.
How'd you get on Z rollers?
Are we going back to that, Raj? Man.
Yeah. Well, so
I really want a pair of Z rollers, by the way. If you have any in the garage.
No way. Okay. No. So what happened was, do you guys know Tony Converse?
I don't know Tony. I don't know. No, Tony.
He is one of my closest friends, and he's such a brilliant guy, and skated for Santa Monica Airlines and lived in New York and in Venice.
Ah, gotcha.
Alyosha somehow became friends with him. And he was like, there's this guy, Tony Converse, he's from Venice. And this is when like Venice is blowing up and everyone's at the pavilion doing jump ramps and J. Adams slashes and Nodis and,
right down here.
Right
here.
I know it well.
Here, right.
And so, and you kind of hear it and you're like, oh yeah. And maybe there was like jump ramp, maybe there was one or two pictures. This is still like before like all the jump ramp covers happened. There was like the Gons was doing the boneless photo on the cover. Nodis may have been doing some wall rides at the cover, but it wasn't like it's gotten to where it was.
Gotcha.
And so we would see that and our emulation of that in New York, because being from New York, you don't understand especially specifically the Los Angeles skateboard world, which is, hey, I'm going to meet you at Kenter. Let's get in the car and drive there, then get out and jump the fence and skate. That was great. High five. Let's go somewhere else.
Right.
New York City was just like, I'm out. Bye, Mom.
Backpack and go.
Backpack.
No backpack.
Yeah, no, I had like
No backpack?
no backpack.
Where are you going to put your water?
No, we had water fountains. There was no bottles of water.
Yeah.
No, there was public water fountains.
You're supposed to drink 64 ounces a day. Man.
I was from the ice cold the water. I have like vivid memories of being a kid in Central Park and all the parks, and they had public water fountains. There was no other way to get water,
right?
And there would be queues, lines of people waiting to get their turn, and they were like these concrete, basically bird baths,
sure,
with like a big brass or like copper dome with a button, and the New York City water is like super good and it fucking ice cold. And in the summertime, you'd get there and the water was like mineral flavored because of the piping. I just have fond memories of that. And then I even remember when they started, there was Perrier, but it was mineral water and fizzy.
Sure.
And we would go to the Brooklyn Bridge banks and have like no money and have to like this is when things were much cheaper, but we would be like, all right, I got $1. And we would go behind the Brooklyn Bridge banks there was like a shitty fucking supermarket, and we would find, because there's no bottled water, kids. It didn't exist, and we got along fine without it. And we would go and they had seltzer.
Yeah.
In the mixed drink section, and they just came out with flavored seltzer that had like a hint of cherry or a hint of orange.
Was that the New York seltzer? The New York one?
No, it was Schweppes.
That's Schweppes. Okay.
Liter bottles. You could get
It's like club soda.
Club soda. It's funny because that's what La Croix is nowadays.
Sure.
And we were doing this in '84.
Were you like shaking it up and trying to get rid of the fizz?
No, we were that's some advanced technique. We were just happy to have some water. We would open the water and let the fizz itself out.
Right.
So for like $1, you could get 3 1-liter bottles. So we would go and get the 3-liter bottles, go back to the Brooklyn Bridge banks, find a little corner. And this is when there was like a homeless gang that lived in the Brooklyn Bridge banks on the other side, underneath the bridge.
Right.
there were these like the archways. Now they're all bricked up, but back then they were open, and there was like a gang of homeless guys who lived in there, and there were just not millions, but there was like dozens of rats, and these guys had tapped into the phone poles and had like TVs and hot plates to make grilled cheese, and they just hated us. So there was like this kind of battle with the homeless guys for years, and we'd come in and like put the soda down, and they'd come out and get the fuck out of here, take our soda. And we're like, damn man.
Right. Well, they're having a good old time, and here comes a bunch of skaters making noise and the whole thing. Yeah.
And like once in a while, like someone's board would roll in there.
Oh man,
it was scary. You would go in there and look, and there were like old, like it almost looked like the city used to use this for carts, and I'm talking horse-drawn carts, like wagon wheels.
Oh, wow.
So there were like wagon wheel carts in the back, like rotted with rats and like a couch. It was like real spooky.
You gotta like run in and run out, like get your shit.
Yeah. And they'd throw shit at you, and then you'd skate and like you'd hit the wire, and the wire would rip out, and you'd be like, no! You'd rip the wire out, and you would hear them in the motherfucker, and they'd come out, and we'd all run away. It was real crazy back then.
Wow. So I'm guessing your buddy that was in Venice, I forget his name.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, Tony Converse.
Tony Converse.
Yes.
He started Converse shoes. No. Different.
I'm not going to get
but
into.
so he got you on Z.
No, he skated for Skip. He actually to this day still works with Skip and Santa Monica Airlines.
Oh wow, amazing.
Yeah, so he was like sending me boards from Skip, and then Skip Anglum would actually send me. I guess at the time I was just like so stoked to get anything from Venice, which just seemed like the
Across the world.
Yeah, and also like the focal point of street skating. Like it wasn't in New York. It was like what we were doing in New York was its own weird anomaly. We never thought what we were doing. If you were good at skateboarding, the fantasy was to go to California. And like guys would take trips. So I went to Del Mar. Oh, what was it like? The combi pool. So much verd.
Yeah.
It was like
Tales from.
Yeah, exactly. It was like it was what they went off to war or something and came back.
Yeah.
Tickets were expensive. No one could do that shit. But Tony had the means and the ability. I think he was working on a movie. He had some kind of connection to the film industry.
Okay.
So he had himself a little apartment in Brooklyn, and then we went to go meet this guy. And this was like, the first time I'm meeting someone from Venice. We would do little wall rides and wall presses, and we thought we knew what we were doing. And we went there, and he built a fucking jump ramp out of scrap wood, and got spray paint and wrote V13 on it. And that was like, what is this? It was like a Fabergé egg. Like we were like, this is like a revered diamond. And we went with him, and he like put it against a wall at a handball court, and was, and again, we don't have ramps. So we don't have any transition skill. We're like falling off, bouncing off the wall, and fucking Tony's like, like huge 10-foot carves across handball courts.
Amazing.
And then tic-tacking out of it,
Yeah.
And we were like, what? And he had like, Santa Monica Airlines, the awesome logo with the little plane, the propeller plane, and he had like custom made. You could not buy like sweatpants with like the Santa Monica Airlines logo down the leg. And it's just like, the coolest guy. For us, it was like, the singer for the Rolling Stones, Mick Jagger, showed up,
Sure.
And I was like, wow. And then he had to go to work, and he was like, you take care of the ramp. And like, I ended up with his jump ramp somehow, which kind of like allowed me to use his jump ramp.
Right.
And I knew that I had like a great advantage over my friends. And I would like sneak it out on my street and like
practice.
Yeah. Learn frigids and Pop-Tarts and stuff. And then somehow he came back for it. And by then I was like, doing really good. I was like really good at jump ramps. And he was like, I'm going to start sending you boards. And I was like, great. And sent me like a box of boards. And at first they were like all notices. And then it started like turning into like, what I'm assuming are experiments that Skip Anglum did.
Oh, okay.
And didn't work out. So like I had these hand painted boards that Skip did with spray paint and like weird pieces of tape. And then he put those Santa Monica Airlines stickers
Gotcha.
on it. And there was still, we were all learning how to ollie, but there was no front kick, so our foot would come off. And like Skipper uses like the weird disc sander and was like sanding on the top of the board, like gills.
Yeah, like mounds, so your foot could stick to, right?
The anti-mounds.
Anti-mounds,
They weren't
right,
debossed, or they weren't embossed, they were debossed. So,
Right. But deboss or making it would create a mound, though.
yeah,
right?
it would be like
Essentially.
your foot, the side of your foot would go like, brrr.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like you're going on you're drifting off the freeway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Sort of like that. And then I got an unpainted Nodus board that weighed like 3 pounds, and the top of it so what he did was they whoever did it, maybe Tony did it or maybe Skip did it, they put all these stickers, whatever, OJ Speed wheels or stuff on the top of the board. And then I didn't know at the time what it was, but now that I'm a surfer, they put surf resin on the top and then put crushed glass, car glass that had shattered on the top. Because we didn't know how to keep the front foot on the board.
Yeah.
So they were trying anything, and they would be like, "Could you please ride this crazy board?" And like people would look at it and be like, "What the fuck is that glass?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And you could like feel it under your feet. Maybe glass would stick to the board better.
Right.
Yeah. So it was like it was a crazy time period, and then. I got the boards, and then there was the whole big shakeup where Santa Monica Airlines got dissolved, and Santa Cruz took some of it, and then World Industries started. Also, at this point, I had befriended Hosoi and Scott Oster and Block, your neighbor, who all came to New York. I was just starting nightclubs. And I went outside to like see if there's like anybody I know. And I remember like opening up the door and there's like a giant crowd. It used to be like hundreds of people trying to get in. And I open up the door and the first people right there at the like trying to come in is Hosoi in Hosoi Rockstar 80s era, Block and Scott Oster. And I was like, grab the door lady, like, let those 3 fucking guys in. They're the best skateboarders in the world. Like, let them in right now. And they came in. I was like, what's up? My name's Eli. And then like through that, like Block got me on Hosoi Rockets and I was getting wheels from them. And then when everything went crazy, they were like, oh, you want to skate for Z-Boys, and I was like always stoked on the Zephyr team, and didn't really understand the where it went. But George Wilson, what's up, George, who was running the team at the time, great famous pro skater from Florida, and also was like a second generation Z-Boy. He put me on the team and would send me boards, and then he was the first guy to fly me out.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, right over here, again, in Venice, right around next to Hama. Yeah. That's where he lived, and that was like, I was on a cot in his little apartment in the kitchen, and then would just like skate to the pavilion and be like, hi, Scott Oster, and they'd be like, what are you doing here? And I was like this weird little anomaly. I was like this New York kid who was in Venice, and at that time, now everybody looks alike. You just order things online.
Yes.
But like when we were in New York in the 80s, if a skater from California like skated into Washington Square Park, you could just tell by what they were wearing. This person's from California. Sure. Before they didn't have to do anything. They would just be like, maybe it was the Raiders cap, but it was, this person's wearing Dickies. Like we didn't really wear Dickies,
Yeah.
So you'd be like, we would just skate up like, oh, you're from California? How did you know that?
We could tell.
The inverse.
Right.
When I went there, they were like, oh, this guy's different. Like, why is he wearing like expensive dunks, or whatever the look was I was doing,
at the time.
And so, yeah. And like all the like, and there was a whole component of, the Shoreline Crips and like the gangster component with the skaters and, Tim Jackson and Kelly Jackson really like looked out for me. And like, I was hanging out. Tuma, I would hang out with a lot. And
Pep, the man.
Yeah, Pep. That's like my whole crew from like the late 80s here. And I was like, and people even knew me after like a week here. I would just skate down the street and there would be like Vato's like, you're that kid from New York. And I was like, yes.
How old are you at this point?
17, 18.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you're already promoting clubs out there?
So it was like right when I started college.
Oh, okay.
As I said, I got kicked out of every school in New York. And then I got sent to boarding school.
Okay.
So there was this like, moment where it was like I suddenly couldn't. My connection to New York was just severed. And now I'm like in the countryside. When I was looking for schools, the only two options afforded me were West Point, because I was a legacy. I had relatives who went to West Point.
The military
academy.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it's like, it's not a school. It is like prep for the military.
Sure.
And it is huge. And everyone in there is a jarhead. And I'm like a fucking skater in the 80s. And I like walk in there with my like asymmetrical haircut. And the entire school wanted to kill me. Like everyone, people would be like jogging in formation, hut, hut. And like they'd all look at me. And I was just like, Mom, I can't go here. Like I'm going to get killed if I come here.
Wow.
You fucked up. You're such a fuck up, like, because I got kicked out of everywhere. Sure. Then I went to Foreman, which was like much more, embracing of the arts. And like everyone's got different learning needs. And I was like, okay, at least I'm not going to get killed. And then I went behind the dining hall and there was a fucking quarter pipe. Someone had built like a 10-foot quarter pipe.
Jeez.
And I was like, literally walked around the corner, saw the quarter pipe, and I was like, I'm going here. That's good enough for me.
Damn.
This is, if I'm going to be stuck in the woods, at least I can learn to skate some transitions.
Gotcha.
That made my decision.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Damn.
and I went there, and that school's the best thing that ever happened to me. And I would like, it was difficult, and I had a lot of things I needed to resolve. And there's great stories I'm not going to bore you with. But ultimately, at the end of my period there, I graduated from high school. I got into the School of Visual Arts where my dad used to teach, not surprisingly. And and so I came back to New York. And now, when I left, and that was about like 3.5 years I was gone.
Okay.
In the summertime, I was still in New York and I was still skating, but like I was outside once, like the whole high school experience, I wasn't really doing that in New York. And like when I came back to New York, my sister was like going out to clubs and like doing the whole thing. And I literally was like, graduated from the school in Connecticut, got in the car, drove back home. And then my sister was like, we're going out. It's Friday night. And we went to the tunnel. This is like 1988, and went to the tunnel, and they knew her and let her right in. A lot of the kids who I grew up with had become like been sucked into the nightclubs. I guess apparently in New York City, nightclubs were kind of getting stale. I don't know. They were trying to make it new and cool.
Okay.
So this is going to sound crazy, but this is, the club kid, what that is?
The club kid.
There's like, do you ever see Party Monster? Michael Alec.
No.
These are movies you could watch.
Okay.
There was like a whole subculture of underage high school kids
Gotcha.
that the clubs were catering to.
Okay.
So, it suddenly became this thing. The parents weren't really aware of it.
Right.
So like my sister was like, oh, we're going to go play pool. And then we would go to the pool hall, and then all the kids from all the schools would be there. We're going to the tunnel. So when you're a kid, you're kind of lying to your parents to go out. So we'd go to the pool hall. That must be like 8, 9 o'clock. So no one's going to a nightclub at 8 or 9 o'clock. But the owners of these nightclubs, because of the club kids who were like, kind of like, gay, artsy, dyeing their hair and doing weird stuff. They were the ringleaders of it all. Michael Alec, Michael Tron, who's actually in All the Streets Are Silent.
Okay.
These are like kids I grew up with. Not Michael Alec. He ended up murdering somebody.
Oh, wow.
That's why there's a movie about him. And drugs and partying craze.
Wow.
So we would all go to the tunnel. And it is 9:30. The sun's still up.
Yeah.
And the doorman, there's nobody there to go in, but all the kids in New York know they're going to let us in.
Okay.
So everyone coming is a high school age kid. And there's like just a door person like, come on in. And the whole club, the main dance floor and everything's closed. And they kind of escort everybody down into the basement. And then you go down there and there's like, I think Larry T was the DJ. And he's DJing open bar.
What?
Kool-Aid and
Open bar for underage kids?
Yeah, what are we talking about?
We're talking screwdrivers. We're talking
Just saw the whole
Cape Cods, Cape Codders. What the hell is it called? Long Island iced teas.
Wow.
And and it's
I'll
like
get you there.
It's like a yeah.
But
It's
why
like,
the open bar? I don't understand.
because this
Okay.
is how smart these motherfuckers were.
Okay.
Within an hour or two, within 2 hours, there is a gigantic, rager of high school kids drunk, and they're playing fucking music, and all the adults start waltzing in at like 11:30 midnight, and they just hear and they go down there, and it's like wow, and now they let us out. They got us liquored up, and then they let us out onto the main floor. And now all the cool adults are like, what's going on? And it was sort of this like crazy, edgy thing. Like New York Magazine did a whole cover on it. Who are the club kids? And, Michael Tron had his hair in a unicorn horn.
Okay.
That was like his signature look. And he was on the cover with his sunglasses and his friends. And they were like the masterminds of getting all these kids. And we were just like, fuck it. I mean, so we were kind of already like living the high life.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
The key element of all this that goes back to All the Streets Are Silent is no hip hop. Once again, as I started off, the city was just like, that's just danger music. People are going to get killed. The only song they would play is It Takes Two. It takes two to make a thing go right.
Okay.
And Girl, I'll House You by the Jungle Brothers, which is technically a house song, but there's rapping in it.
Yes.
And like that was the highlight for all of us of the night.
When those two songs would come on, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That was like we would all go crazy and all the girls and the guys we do the dance the freak, like where you're dry humping each other, and that was like the shit, And I was going out too much and my grades kind of got shitty, and my mom was like, You're done. I'm paying for all this. You got to focus on your schoolwork, and you're skating all day. You're doing shitty school, and then you're going out partying all night. And and also just to be clear, I'm not going to get into this, but when I was, doing very bad in school, the guys who were skateboarders were also drug dealers.
Okay. Gotcha.
So I was kind of raised by these older kids who were drug dealers, and I had all the drugs in the world at my disposal, and it made it unexotic. It was just not
interesting, right?
It's not
Right,
interesting.
right.
Yeah.
Bags of weed and whatever else. And there was sort of an attitude. Even those guys would smoke weed on occasion. There was this sort of like that they were the prey, and that they were preying on these suckers who were going to pay all this money for the stuff that they were getting for cheap.
Okay.
And so I was always like, it wasn't like exotic. When I went to boarding school, I would see kids from all over the country come up from, wherever, Florida or Colorado, come to the boarding school, and like they've never had a drink, and they were like doing anything they could, saving their allowance to try and like pay the local hobo to go get them some like wine. It was crazy, and there's other crazier stories than that.
You're like, dude, I've just been in the bar. I just got out of the bar.
Yeah. Well, I was just like, I kind of looked at them as they were chumps. So even when I was doing all this stuff, I wasn't like going out to get fucked up. I was just happy to be back in the city.
Gotcha.
So I was like, just I would have a drink here and there, but I was just like, I'm back with my friends. I'm skateboarding. There's a hip, we're dancing at the clubs. This is great.
Right.
And I just wanted to skate. That's all I wanted to do.
Sure.
All day long. So I just never, usually when you say like, I was going out to clubs every night, people think you're getting completely wasted, but I was not.
No.
I was just going out partying. At this time, because of writing graffiti and skateboarding, there was my buddy was this kid, Dominique Beasley, who is like this black kid. He skated for Shut, and he had blonde hair.
Okay.
And me and him would go skateboarding because we were living up on the Upper West Side. Everyone who was skateboarding was kind of downtown. So he and I would like hook up and skate around. We would skate all the way down to Washington Square Park together and skate all the way back. And his mom was a famous burlesque dancer, Madame Hennessy.
Okay. Whoa.
So he was kind of like, came from a much more liberal family than I did, and she was cool as fuck. She had bleached blonde hair. That was her, a black sexy lady with bleached short hair. And he kind of adopted her look. And he was like really into hip hop and was like living in the projects. So he somehow managed to not be. I had other friends who lived in the projects and skateboarded, and they were ostracized. They were like, get off that white boy shit. I'm gonna put my head down, put my hood up, and just skate out of there, or like try to hide their board. But he, I guess because of his mom, he was like hood famous. So he like, knew all the drug dealers, knew all the pimps and all the girls and everybody, and would skateboard. And like, if someone was playing music, he could like dance in the dance crew. He was a much cooler guy than I was. I was like his sidekick,
Gotcha.
So we would like he and I were just like blood brothers. That's like my man, 50 grand. And, so I can't. My mom kicked me out from stop. I couldn't go to the clubs anymore.
No,
and I needed to make some money. And literally, like a week went by. I'm not fucking with you. Like 1 week, and I was just like, stay home with my mom. You need to get a job. Go find a late night. What do you want me to do? Be a security guard?
Right.
You need to stop skateboarding. And then this kid, my friend Carter Smith, who was also a skateboarder, he called me up and was like, listen, what are you doing? And I was like, nothing. And he was like, do you want to make $100? And I was like, yeah. He said they're opening up a new nightclub called Mars, and they need promoters.
Okay.
Again, this is before the internet. Mm-hmm. So there was no like passes. It was all physical. What this entailed is we would go to the club. It was still under construction. We'd have a knapsack. Mm-hmm. You get, clubbed out, trying to look cool. Put the knapsack on. They would give you basically postcards with the information of the club on one side and a flyer.
Yeah.
Load up the bag, and then as a promotional device, they would give us boxes of Mars candy bars because it was Club Mars.
Oh.
So that's how we were going to do that. Try to get the candy bars. I don't know what they were thinking. Okay. We would go to the clubs, and we get $100 bill. The $100 bill was to, fund you if you had to pay to get into the clubs for taxis, you got to keep what was left.
Okay.
But we're not having that. So we would just walk. We knew where all the clubs were. I guess the older people, they're not really in the loop. At this point, I was in the loop of like, Monday nights are here, Tuesday nights are here, whatever. There were parties you'd go to.
Sure.
So we'd go around, and then the bouncers, they stuck out there bouncing,
Mm-hmm.
And we'd show up, and they'd be like, it's the kids with the candy bars. So they'd let me and my man in, and we
For a couple candy bars?
candy bars.
Wow. Amazing.
Oh my God. I mean, it was genius. We were after like a couple weeks of this, like every single party promoter knew us. All the bouncers knew us. I was like, nightclub royalty.
Wow. What free candy will do.
Yeah.
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 My goodness.
Yeah. And would just go around, me and this guy, and then the club opened up. Mm-hmm. And then to make a long story short, they were going to do a new party. They wanted to, their spaces wouldn't be utilized. The Club Mars opens up. I guess that would be New Year's Eve, 1989.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it's 6 stories. It's in the meatpacking district in New York, right on the West Side Highway. And there was a basement, a main floor, a second floor, a third floor, a fourth floor, and then the roof. Maybe it was 4 floors or 5 floors. It's in the documentary. You can go see pictures of it. And so they realized that there was no utilization of the basement. The basement was playing reggae. I think maybe not even with a DJ. They just had like dance hall playing, and they had TVs, and it was boring.
Okay.
So you'd go, and this is before there's bottle service. There's nowhere to sit. So people would go to the basement. They'd sit down on these like shitty little wooden benches and then leave. So they were like, you guys want to do something in the basement. There was like this girl, Kiki, and she wanted to do this party that was popular in London called Trip. And so me, and I, at this point, they were like, okay, Kiki, you're going to be doing this with Eli, and we're going to use this other DJ. And then I got to hire somebody. So I hired Beasley.
Okay.
Because he was like, I need to get a job. So now it's like me and Beasley, and we're like a team promoting the party. And we're like in Washington Square Park, and we're just catering to skaters, all the girls who hang out with the skaters, all the graffiti writers, all the hip hop guys. And, we want to play hip hop. And we go to the owners and we're like, we want to play hip hop, no hip hop. I'm like, what are we playing? You can play, if you don't want to play house music, play reggae music. So we're like, all right, we'll figure this out. And so and it was so ghetto. We had a folding table with the two 1200s in a room like as big as this. And it was that was the beginning of it. And, we talked to the DJ with Duke of Denmark, and we were like, we want to play hip hop. He was like, yeah, fuck this shit. And we're like, oh, what the owners aren't going to go outside to go around. There was a separate entrance into the basement.
Gotcha.
So we were like, all right, when we start playing hip hop, one of us is going to take a bullet and be at the top of the stairs, like the parents, like we were the kids. So we're like, all right, put on the hip hop, and we'd start playing Jungle Brothers and late 80s, early mid 80s hip hop.
Okay.
And we would just sit up there when we would see either Yuki or any of the, what was his name? Yeah, I can't. Anyways, any of the guys who ran the club.
Yeah.
And the club was owned by the Japanese. So any of the Japanese people came down, we'd just run downstairs and be like, flip it. And he had a record clip, just throw it on
there.
You don't love me. Yes, I know. And he'd come downstairs and be like, all right. And so we kind of conned our way into this hip hop thing.
Right.
I think eventually after about a month of this, it got super popular. Because all the kids knew they're playing hip hop and it's run by Eli and Beasley and they'll just let us in, and we had a separate entrance.
Yeah.
So kids who might not be let in by the fancy promoters in the front, we had our own promoters or it would be us. We'd be like, come in. It was literally like the little, the door that opens in the sidewalk.
Yeah, right.
That was the entrance.
Like a cellar door type thing?
A cellar door, yeah, in the sidewalk. That was that was just our private little club.
Kind of dope.
Yeah.
And you guys were the only one playing hip hop in New York City at this point?
No, there were things that were going on. I don't want it to listen again with the film. There are going to be people upset that it makes it seem like I did it. There were other things. There was Powerhouse did it, but they got shut down. Even before that, around 1987, 88. Payday Records. You guys probably might not know.
Yeah,
all right, yeah,
definitely.
So Payday Records, and those guys eventually. I forget the guy's name, but they also Ted Demme, who directed Blow. He also went on to go do Yo MTV Raps.
Okay.
This is again, clubs wouldn't allow you to play hip hop music, but you could rent out a venue for a show. Like if you wanted to do a rock group, if you were like,
Gotcha.
oh, we're the Strokes or we're the Ramones or Fishbone, they would rent out the Roxy or rent out Irving Plaza.
Right.
So the guys at Payday were like, we're going to rent out Irving Plaza and play hip hop.
Little one-offs.
Yeah, but they did it pretty regularly.
Okay.
Side note, Jeremy Henderson knew these guys, and he actually built 2 quarter pipes that we used to leave on the stage.
Sick.
Yeah, and they would push them in the corner. Nobody noticed them. None of the bands noticed them. And then we knew they were there, and we would know we can take the ramps out on hip hop night. Isn't that crazy? My entire life is just skateboarding and hip hop.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we would show up to Irving Plaza when the cleaning team would be there at 6 because there's no ramps in New York.
Okay.
So the cleaning guys would show up and there'd be me and 2 other skaters. Me, Beasley, and Aaron Lennox would be waiting. And they're like, come in, skateboarders. And we'd go in there. No, the lights are on, no music. And we'd flip the quarter pipes around on the stage. And it would be quarter pipe, flat stage, quarter pipe, like that.
Yeah, sick.
And then and then when the bar backs showed up, apparently they had a deal, which was that the skaters get paid a case of beer. So the bar backs would come and bring us a case of beer. By then we're so thirsty, we're drinking the beer. And then Beasley is into hip hop. We're all into hip hop, but he's going out to hip hop clubs and dancing. And so we would skate on the stage while everyone and this crowd is hip hop, from the fucking hood, with a couple of cool white people. And we would be skating and they would I just remember like guys like, you know, like EPMD looking dudes like watching us like, what the fuck is this? You know? Us, and we're skating poorly, you know, like we don't know how to skate ramps, and this ramp is no good because it's 2 quarter pipes. And then like, you know, they would be like, okay, you guys have to stop skating because the show's going to come on, the Jungle Brothers. And then Beasley, who was just like the savviest, awesome dude, would just be like, watch my board. And he would go out into the audience and like get into the circle and dance. And I remember looking at him and being like, oh, like, just because I skate doesn't mean that I can't be involved in this as well. Yeah. You know? Gotcha. And he was really the guy who was like, if I'm into it, I'm doing it. Right. And was just like so confident and charming, and everybody knew him. He would skate, and like all of us would be like banging our boards, clack, 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 yeah. And then 5 minutes later, in the middle of the circle, go Beasley, go Beasley.
Amazing.
Yeah, he was like the fucking man, you know, and skated for Shut, and he was like so badass. So when we kind of like that stuff was going on, but then like to finish the payday thing, what happens to these places? Shootouts, like violence. You know, my man Peter Paul, he got shot there. I watched him get shot. You know, and then that's it. Then you're like banned. You can't do this again. So that was kind of how hip hop was. We'd try to do at least downtown. You know, obviously in Midtown and Uptown there was more serious like. The Hood was like actually doing hip hop parties, but trying to do it downtown Manhattan, that was sort of the breakthrough that we did. Right. And it was just one of those things like, how can you not be doing this? Like everyone likes this music. So we got busted. They saw us playing hip hop at our party. The owners. Right. And came downstairs and everyone was having a good time. And it's just like, unthreatening people and lots of girls. That's like a big factor. The girl factor is key for this to work.
Sure.
A lot of the hip hop parties you'd go to, the ratio would be like, 10 to 1.
Be a little off.
10 dudes for every girl.
Right. Yeah.
And the sausage fest and a sword fight, it was like never good. Yeah. But our party, like we were like, even went to all the girls. The girls were like my sister's friends and all the girls from Washington Square Park, all the girls who went to LaGuardia and used to be like dancers. That was the goal.
Gotcha.
You need a safe space to come listen to hip hop music, and we'll let other dudes in. So they came down and they were like, look at this. Like, this is like guys and girls happily dancing to De La Soul. Perfect. Sure. And so they were like, all right, you can keep doing this. And then the kind of word got out. And it just, I'd be happy to go in greater detail if you'd like about all the little steps that happened. But, I'll be happy to stop there.
Well, no. I think, but a lot of this is in the film, like the kind of the breakdown of Mars.
Yeah.
And how, like, popular and like, influential.
Yeah.
It's like it was crazy.
It makes it seem like, oh, Eli knew something, but Eli just knew the a lot of my life is been focused on this is fucking ridiculous. Like, why is this older generation or these people in power trying to stop something that's so positive? As I aforementioned,
sure.
I was arrested multiple times for skateboarding and graffiti, and that led me down this path of like, fuck the world, because it was like ridiculous. I had friends who were drug dealers or stick-up kids or, knew people who got killed, and like what's going on here? Like, this is completely positive. All these kids are outside all day long, learning tricks, getting, accomplishing goals, getting stronger and more fit and interacting with the world and getting savvy. And graffiti writers are, in the best case scenario, beautifying the world and doing their artistic, expressing themselves artistically. Sure. And so for me, there was never like a mad scientist moment where I was like, the world is going to rue the day they tried to outlaw skateboarding and graffiti. Right. Yeah. But that was always like, what are you fucking assholes? And nowadays, obviously there were these like PSA commercials. I don't know if you guys cut away to stuff, but there are these. It's cold.
Yeah.
I like that.
No, we don't. Though.
I know. That was how you said it. So anyways, they had like a PSA commercial that was like, you know, the little girl with the helmet kick flipping like an 8 set.
Sure.
And she's like, I can kick flip the 8 set. I know I can go to college. And then the guy graffitiing a graffiti piece, like, I can paint this beautiful mural. I know I can go to college, you know, which is all I ever wanted. I just wanted them to go to college, you know? But I really was just like, you know, this is fucking dumb. And then the reason why Trip blew up was just because, you know, we were pleading with these guys for years. Just play hip hop. No violence, you know?
Right.
And they're not wrong, but if you just could manage it right.
Because it came full circle, right? Mars eventually closed because of the violence later on.
Well,
right?
Well, let me explain that specific thing. They talk about it briefly in the movie.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna say the story. It's not in the film. So me and Beasley are at Mars setting up for the evening's affairs.
Okay.
And you kind of have run of the club when it's daylight. And you can use the soda machines, and they got a Xerox machine and telephone calls. This was a big deal at that time. No one had cell phones.
Sure.
So Beasley and I would kind of like camp out in the Xerox room and like play and steal like their markers because we were still graffiti writers.
Okay.
Right.
So we were like stealing. They had like a spray foam to
insulation type shit.
No, like to wax floors or like
spray foam.
Spray foam.
Right.
But the caps on the industrial spray foam are fat caps, which are like New York City fat caps, and this was a huge deal.
Okay.
So we would like steal all the caps on the spray foam, and they would be like, "Who took all the caps?" Then we would take them, steal the spray paint that they had, and we would like go bombing with them. We were always just running around.
Sure.
In New York, you might be aware of they've got the Highline Park now.
Highline Park.
In New York City, in the meat market, there's an elevated train line that they've turned into a park. From the old Mars, we could jump down into it when it was still an abandoned train line. And we would do graffiti there and run around and, just all mayhem.
Sure.
So while we're doing all this and living our lives, Beasley finds like a Shure microphone. Those like cheapo school microphones. He's like, tonight I'm going to rap. And I'm like, you can rap? He's like, we're going to be a rap duo.
Oh, no.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, I'm not going to rap, man. And I don't think you should rap too. He's like, no, it'll be dope. I'm going to do it. And I'm like, please don't do this. And so the party goes on. Beasley sneaks the microphone down and like plugs it in. And I remember Duke being like, don't do this, man. And he's like, what's up? It's Beasley. And I'm on the microphone right now. And doesn't know how to rhyme, doesn't have anything going on. And he's like pointing at girls. There's like the Shaquanda, there's Chelsea, what's up, Norsall, like doing the whole thing.
Yeah.
And this like kind of like old, and you could tell when you're a kid, like this guy's old. He's older. Right. So this like guy, he's probably in his 30s or 40s, and he's like, he looks like a dad, and he's got his dad shirt on and he's got a little cocktail and a pinky ring, and he's a little bit overweight, and he comes over and he's just like standing next to us. And we're like, why is this old guy coming over with us? And like Beasley's passing the mic, and some like idiot hood friends are like trying to take the mic and saying, a Bismarcky rhyme or some other, just being stupid. And then he was like, hey, can I get on the mic? We're like, what, Dad? You want to get on the mic?
Right.
And we're like, yeah, fine, here. And he's like, thank you. What's up, party people? This is the almighty KG, Cold Crush Brothers, Bronx represented, and we were like, what? And then the DJ Duke is like, fuck, it's fucking KG from the Cold Crush Brothers. And then we just all got out of the way. And then he just had the microphone the entire night with a cocktail, and like knew the songs. And he'd be like, yeah, what's up? Good. He'd say little rhymes, then he'd stop and tell the DJ like, oh, put on like Before I Let Go, and then he'd come into a whole set he had already set up from back in the day, back in the origins of hip hop days. And everyone stopped dancing and everyone's watching the show, and we were like, what the fuck? And then like he's there to the end of till we close, whenever that was, 4 a.m.
Wow.
And then he was like, we're like, that was amazing. And we're even talking like, how are we going to get this guy back? And he was like, you guys think I could come back next week?
Oh shit.
And we were like, we'll give you all the free drinks you want, because we had drink tickets.
Yeah.
He was like, done. And he just kept coming back. And then he was the host. He learned all of our names, learned the party, learned everybody, all the regulars' names.
Amazing.
So this was like, a historic, the creation of hip hop in the parks in the Bronx. This is one of the guys who was like the greats at that, and like was like the party management guy, and would sit there and like people would come in and he'd shout them out like, "Oh, you're here," you girls need to talk to each other, and I had all these funny lines, and soon it was just overcrowded. And then people just started like, no one wanted the door people would notice people would come, not go to the main door, just want to get in here. So we had a mob of people trying to go down into the basement shack. And that's where everything sort of escalated, where they were like, okay, we're moving you to the second floor. It's a huge floor that could hold 1,000 people. And we were bringing in like 2,000 people, Wow. All of our friends who we originally started it for, they couldn't get in, so we started making these trip passes, which were laminates. You just could hold up. There was such a mob of people trying to get in.
Crazy.
Yeah. My mom...
She couldn't get in?
She actually came once or twice and was just like, this is crazy. Yeah. But like I'd come home and she'd be furious because we had the tape answering machines, back in the day.
Yeah. Boop, well, like 5 new messages.
Yeah. It would be flashing at 99.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I'd have to rewind the whole fucking tape and get a piece of paper out and a notebook. Beep, what's up? This is, Tony G +1. It's good to hear you. Beep. Everyone was calling I don't know how they got my number. My mom was livid. So I would make the guest list on a Friday night and then unplug the phone because she couldn't get any rest. People would call all night long.
Wow.
Yeah.
Using the house phone. Like,
I know.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Were you still kind of sneaking in the hip hop at this point? Or is they just
No.
When
When they came in and saw that we were playing hip hop and it was a nice percentage, but it was an equal percentage of girls and guys, that was really like my job.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Was like I was completely stressed about keeping the amount of girls and the girls that got in happy.
Right.
If you were a girl and you wanted to come to this party, you were getting in, and I was giving you drink tickets, and you could bring all your girlfriends. Mm-hmm. And if I was looking around and there was like, oh, there's too many dudes, I would just shut it down.
You would, okay.
There'd just be like, no more dudes unless we get more girls in. Because I didn't want to, and it was like a real positive thing. I actually have an audio recording of one of the nights with KG on the microphone, and the recording's terrible because the music was so loud. The second floor, the speakers were built into the wall. There was like 10-foot tall speaker boxes, and it was all like, imagine an entire 100-foot wall with like speaker boxes from a kicking Jeep. It was so loud. No one would even go by the wall because it was so loud. So the recording is like,
it's super blown.
Yeah.
Right.
And while KG's doing that, a fight breaks out, apparently. It's an audio tape.
Okay.
A fight breaks out, and he's like, turn the music off. He was like, look at these motherfuckers trying to start problems. Stop that bullshit. And the whole crowd's going, stop that bullshit, to the people who were trying to fight. So it could be like 6 or 7 guys trying to fight, but then you have 1,000 people telling you to stop that bullshit, and they would be shamed into being peaceful. They would be like, run away,
Crazy.
Yeah, and then you'd be like, all right, back to the party. We put the music back on, and it was like we wouldn't allow anything like that.
Wow.
So, and this went on for, a couple years, 1990, 91. But once 1992 happened, it was like, the party got so popular that the people we started it for, the people in Washington Square Park, the skaters, the graffiti writers, our friends, they kind of like migrated over to other parties. And there was like a lot of great younger promoters were doing like more, because it was like it didn't need to be that big.
Gotcha. Right.
So, and that's when the gangs just started coming. They had nothing. We didn't know them. They had nothing to do with us. They were probably people who like could be from Yonkers or New Jersey, drove there, didn't get in, drove by. Fuck you! Started shooting at the front.
Is that when Puffy started having his promotional Daddy's House and all that?
Yeah. I mean, listen. I don't want to say that.
He got the idea from you.
Maybe, possibly. Apparently, he was doing this at his college.
Right.
I'm not sure where he went, Howard or someplace like that.
Howard or Morehouse, one of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was doing daddy's houses down there. Yeah. But I think because we were having success and the power brokers of the New York City party scene gave it the nod that okay, you can do this now.
Yeah.
Were these in different boroughs or were these in different?
No, this was all in Manhattan.
Okay.
Mars was in the meatpacking district, like basically on 14th Street and the West Side Highway, 13th Street and the West Side Highway. Daddy's house was at Red Zone, kind of closer to Times Square.
Interesting.
You know, in the middle of nowhere.
You been to Daddy's house?
I've never been to that.
Never been to Daddy's.
I used to go.
Used to go to Daddy's house
every Thursday, whenever it was. I think it was Thursday, maybe it was Tuesday, but it was that was like, and also that was like decidedly like the Black and Beautiful, like the fucking the G's that were going to go on to like Mike Tyson was at Daddy's house. Mike Tyson had a Lamborghini LSI Jeep.
Wow.
And he didn't want to get the tickets. He's Mike Tyson, and he's on coke. So he would like drive up onto the sidewalk and park this Lamborghini Jeep, which is like a dream car even today, and just leave it there.
That's
and
not
then
gonna stand out.
And no one would write him tickets, or they did. He didn't care. He just didn't fucking care. And he would go in, and because of my cachet in the late night entertainment, I got to go to the VIP room a lot, and that's where I got to like hang out with like Tyson and all the Eddie Murphys of the world. And everyone, I was Eli from Trip, so and I was with Beasley, so everyone knew who I was. I actually remember Tyson wasted, and it was the sun's coming up, and we were outside, and they had the little shish kebab dudes out on the carts, and Tyson was like drunk and like, I'm buying all shish kebabs, and we're like, yeah, and Tyson's buying us shish kebabs, and we're all eating shish kebabs, and like no one's on the street, it's kind of vacant, and all the pigeons, they flock around the shish kebab cart for the leftovers. But at this, now we know Tyson loves pigeons. I didn't know this. Motherfucking Tyson's like eating the things drunk, like talking to a girl, and he'd be like, whakash, and like snatch a pigeon off the street.
Wow.
Feathers. Yeah. And they'd be like, this is a good one. And he could just snatch pigeons. And then me and Beasley the next day were like, let's see, if he's doing it, we're fucking skateboarders,
Yeah.
No way.
Gonna snatch a pigeon.
No way in hell.
And he's drunk.
And he's drunk.
Catching him.
Yeah. And we saw him trying on clothes in like the Barney's in the front window once. We were skateboarding. And we were like, scope by, we were like, Tyson, and banging on the window. And like, he didn't know who we were because we were skateboarding, but then saw Beasley with the blonde hair and was like, oh, and like ran over to the window with like the suit half on him and like punched the window. So we're banging on the window and we're like, flap, 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 flap.
Yeah.
He was like, what's up? And gave us like the pound. It was like, fung, gung, 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 gung,
Almost
gung.
broke it.
Wow.
Yeah. We were like, I don't want that guy ever hitting me, man.
Ooh.
But as you can see, because of all this,
Yes.
I got the phone call, and Rick Russell Simmons would come. The whole Phat Farm thing, the more in-depth story has to do with Paul Middleman, who you guys may or may not know.
Definitely know.
So Paul is a skateboarder and surfer from New York City, and his family were in the rag trade. They owned in the 1980s, they had like the cool up on the Upper West Side. They had like the one cool store where you could get like neon, green and checkerboard shit. And, and so he was somehow hip to this whole world. He used to get surfboards from Sean Stussy. Then when Stussy was like, oh, I need to go and start making clothes, Paul was somehow involved in that and kind of started bringing all of that to New York. And we were like hyped on Stussy, the Stussy ads. As if to bring it all back, Tony Converse is one of the original models in the early Stussy ads in Thrasher.
Interesting. Wow.
You can easily go find them. They're like fisheye lenses, and it's like Tony and sometimes it was, and there's like a hot blonde girl, and Jules and Paul's in them. But like these were people we knew, and they were like in Stussy ads, and he was just giving us stickers, and we had all the T-shirts, and like I guess by today's standards, we were sort of like all sponsored by Stussy.
Sure.
So I always just had a shitload of Stussy shirts, and all my boards were just covered in Stussy stickers, and like knew, Sean and Paul. And then like our party got so big that Paul was like, hey, you want to do a Stussy party? And we were like, fuck yeah, we want to do a Stussy party. And then he talked to Sean, and Sean sent us an invite. So all the trip invites, me and Beasley did them.
Okay.
And they all had sort of like a graffiti look and whatever. And then Sean Stussy showed up and like sent us the artwork, meeting of the Stussy tribe, trip, New York City. And it was like, what? This has never happened before. No one's ever done like maybe like Adidas may have done a party to launch something with like Run DMC, but nothing on like our level. Like this was like,
So this was good. This was like a good flyer.
this is beyond good.
Okay.
This was like almost like a sign off from the Pope for us. So I made the passes. They came out. They were so cool. They were like, because everyone loved the Stussy ads and the shirts, and here was like a pass for my party that looked just like all of them. And we like started going and handing them out, and people had their minds blown. We were like, went to Washington Square Park. We're like, whip, whip, whip. And they were like, what? We're like, I'm totally going to be there. And we're like, yeah, it's going to be awesome. Look at this pass that Sean Stussy made.
Wow.
That was awesome enough. Right at the party, I show up, and the cleaning guys, I'm setting up for the party. The cleaning guys are like, you have all these boxes. You have all these boxes. I'm like, where are they? We put them in the copy room where you hang out.
Steal the pens.
We're like, what the fuck is this? Open them up. Stussy shirts. And he took the graphic with his own dime and made these dope, like army green and khaki t-shirts. Meeting of the Stussy tribe, trip crew, Mars, and I was like, what? And I didn't even know. I think I had to call Paul Middleman, and I was like, Paul, there's all these Stussy shirts. Like, what are we charging? Like, how does this work? No, you just give them away. And I was like, you sent me 500 Stussy shirts to give away at my party?
Wow.
Yeah, this is unprecedented shit.
No, it's like they made like tour shirts, like bands,
promotional shit.
bands would make.
You still
right?
have to
Like-
pay for those.
Well,
Yeah,
right, exactly,
yeah.
for
Oh,
sure.
there.
For
This
sure.
was Sean Stussy, Paul Middleman. This is the coolest party in New York. We're going to give away these T-shirts
Yeah.
to envelop this crowd.
Right.
Marketing.
Yeah, marketing
We're
is
going to
best.
make these people like us. And we're sitting there with KG and DJ Duke of Denmark with who knows who was rapping else, KRS-One, and we're fucking throwing Stussy shirts.
Amazing.
Stussy shirts leads into Phat Farm
Yes.
with Russell Simmons.
So Russell, unbeknownst to me, is coming to my party. Everybody in hip hop is coming to my party at this time, and apparently he, sees the T-shirt thing at this, sees the Stussy T-shirts. Russell was really into dating fashion models.
Okay.
Yes.
And there was on West Broadway, there was a boutique called Baguda. Baguda only sold couture, super high-end Dolce & Gabbana stuff. Around the corner was the original Union store, which later became the Stussy Union store. And it was also a hangout for all the kids who would come to my party. So he was talking to this guy, Mark Baguda, who owned Baguda. And Mark is like, listen, you're the hip hop kingpin. You should be making clothes like Stussy for the kids because you are giving them the music they listen to. I don't know what you're fucking talking about. A legend has it he takes Russell around the corner and shows him with all the kids, they're buying this stuff. And they walked over and saw, T-shirts and hoodies? And then he was like, all right, I'm going to go start a clothing line.
Okay.
Just like that.
Just like that. Just like that.
Wow.
Then, because the Stussy Union store is in his brain, he sees us throwing out all the Stussy shirts. So we must know
What's good?
and also how to make clothes.
Right. Because we're doing that.
Yeah.
Because we're doing it. So ups and downs, drama, and then you get the phone call. You wake up one morning and I have a friend who's like, listen, Russell Simmons wants to start a clothing line and he wants you, Ali Asha, and Paul Middleman to be the designers. And you're like, what?
Wow. Okay.
So we were like, this is a gigantic oversimplification of a
Gotcha.
very tenuous, up and down, dramatic story. But we all end up working for Russell,
Okay.
doing Phat Farm. And he didn't even have a name. He was just making a clothing line. And at the time, he's like, yo, you guys want to come make a clothing line with me? And the slang term was fat. Yeah, man, that's fat. We'll do that. That's fat. So we go and we have our first meeting, teenagers with, maybe I'm 20. with Russell Simmons, and it's fucking Russell Simmons, and he has a huge presence, and he's like a mobster, and he does all of his work and the corner booth of this place called Time Cafe, which was like the where all the fashion models eat. It was like the elitist cafe in Soho, and he had the corner booth, and he's on a cell phone doing fuck that, did this record's going out, and he would just do business there.
Okay.
So we're walking in and we're like, oh my God, you and you guys want to do this? And we're like, yeah, we'd love to do this, and and then I think I'm the only one. I was like, listen, except for Paul, whose father owned a clothing store and he worked for Sean Stussy, I write graffiti and skateboard, and Alyasha writes graffiti and skateboard. We know how to buy clothes, but we're telling you right now, we don't not trained in this. Okay. He's like, don't worry. Rappers don't know how to run a studio, but they still get records made.
Like, you'll figure it out.
You'll figure it out. And I'm like, that's cool. All right, one last thing. It's got to have the word fat in it. And I'm like, no, we don't like that. And he's like, why? He's like, well, because we're all saying, you say fat every day. You say fat. And I'm like, yeah, but no one's going to be saying fat in 10 years. He says, no one says Def anymore, but I still have Def Jam. And we're like, okay.
Okay. Wow.
That's who I'm working for. He's just like an idiot savant, like a brilliant guy that way.
Okay.
And so we all start making the clothes. We're building a store. We make up the Phat name, and we have to use Phat. It was Phat Fashions. There's still some shirts.
Baby Phat.
Oh, we came up with that name. I actually drew the Baby Phat logo too. That whoever his wife years later makes a claim Kamora Lee's. And that she did not do that. I actually sat next to her on the airplane once and was like, you didn't make that Baby Phat logo.
Wow.
Just to let her know, hey, you did
She
not
was like,
make
what? Fuck off. I was like, all right. So
Let me get another
That sounds about right. That sounds about right.
She didn't even know who you were? You just sat next to her and said that?
yeah, well, she was in first class. I kind of like made like the first class, like, yo, just so you know, I know.
That's so dope.
And I've actually checked out her like autobiography, and it's just like, I am in love with this cat, and I had to express myself with the cat. I was like, Russell didn't even know you were alive when I drew the cat. So anyways, we went and did Phat Farm.
Okay.
It had a lot of ups and downs. It was a complete roller coaster ride. We were opening up a store. Russell, who's a PR guy, had we were in all the magazines, and we're doing photo shoots. We don't have any clothes, and like me and Ollie are drawing pictures of clothes, but they're like graffiti characters wearing clothes.
Yeah.
I'm doing logos. Like I'm actually making Phat Farm logos, and we came up with the name Phat Farm because we wanted to do something like polo, and we had to use fat.
Okay.
So that seemed to be sensational or appropriate.
It was necessary at the time.
Yes, we landed on it. That's how it is.
Gotcha.
And there's so many awesome stories. We were like, the first thing we made, the first designed thing, we were like, an M65, M90, or M65 jacket, the military overcoats that come in camo and drab. We were like, we got to duplicate these, and we were going to go and make them in leather with like fur lining. We had all these big ideas, and they went, and the first things we made were a run of these of the M65 jacket, completely duplicated in really thick, kind of like cream fabric.
Okay.
And it was just the sample came in, and you've never seen the M65 jacket in like light natural colors, and it came in, and we were like, that shit's dope. And the design, the people who were sewing it, they're like, this is just the sample fabric. There's no color, and we're like, no, this is it.
Okay.
And we're already starting to like get press because of Russell, and we like made a whole run because we liked the jacket so much. We were like, let's make 100 of them, and it was the first thing we ever made. The guys were like, we're done. They shipped it out of the garment district to our shop on Prince Street, they got stolen.
Oh my God.
The people were so hyped on this shit that like we never got to see them.
Never.
Wow.
They just got somewhere out there. Someone just vicked it off the truck.
Wow.
And you know, we didn't know what we were gonna do, and like Russell was gonna lose his mind. Like, what did I get myself into? And I was sitting with him at Time Cafe, and these like two Jewish businessmen kind of come up to the table, and they're like, "Hey, we're huge fans." And Russell's at me. I'm just like looking at them. And they're like, "Yeah," and they give Russell their business card, and they're like, "Oh, hi, we have a clothing company in Canada called Roots," and we're like, "What?" And we were like, "You guys make clothes?" And we're like, "Yeah, we're like the biggest clothing company in Canada."
This is huge.
And we're like, "You got factories?" And he was like, "Yeah." And we're like, "We need to make clothes." And I was like, "I don't know what I'm doing." And Aliash is like, "We don't know what we're doing." And they're like, "Say no more, fam." They were like, "Come to Toronto. We will show you from step one how to go make everything."
Amazing.
And then the next day, this is how Russell Simmons does business. He's like, we're out at a club. He's screaming on a cell phone. It's at midnight. And he's like, "All right, we're going to Canada tomorrow morning. Get ready. I'm going to pick you up at 5 a.m. I'm like, "In 5 fucking hours?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I run home trying to get some sleep. And then like the sun's not even up. He's like, "Get in the fucking car, pick up Aliasha." We drive to the airport, get on the plane to go to Canada at like 7 a.m., fly to Toronto, get picked up in Toronto. They drive us to the factory. They give us the tour. This is how you do stuff. We're like, "That's great." And then they take us out to dinner, and then it's back to the airplane, and then flying back to the United States. He drops me off at my house. And he's like, "All right, I'll be back at 5 a.m.
For what?
to pick me up to fly me back to Toronto like it's a commute."
Back and forth. Hey, we're gonna do the back and forth.
Wow.
And he's got no problem. His guy's just go.
going.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
And I'm like, I can't just. And finally, I'm like talking to his business partner, Larry Schatz, and I'm like, "Larry, I can't do this." You know, he's like,
Is this going to be a regular thing?
Yeah.
Like, wow.
So they put us in a hotel room, and we learned how to make clothes,
Sure.
and it comes out. There was a riot at the club when we did the opening night, and that like put us in the newspaper.
Oh, wow.
But we had all the clothes from Roots, and they make great stuff, and like it kind of blew up. And then there was like a lot of other like, you know, who's in charge of what, and at the end of the day, we're employees.
Okay.
And this is like our first real job. But it's like we came up with the name and the logo and the marketing, but it's all Russell's, and I'm a salary man, and I'm making a good living,
Right.
but I don't own it.
And at the time, you're probably feeling like this, we created this, we should probably get some ownership in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you talk to them and they're like, no, that's what you signed up for. And that's that in retrospect, you know, we're not putting any money in. The risk is all on these guys.
Sure.
You know,
Sure.
But at the same time, while this is going on, Shut Skates goes out of business.
Okay.
So basically, the Coco Santiagos and the Sheffys and the Jeff Pangs and the Chris Pasturises,
Yeah.
understandably, go off to the sunnier fields of California,
Right.
abandoning the whole Shut Skates thing, which had its own problems. They were trying to do the business model of the 80s, which was we make a model, the Shark.
Right behind me.
You're
yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
The what's it called? The assault vehicle, the first skateboard I ever drew. And they would like, all right, we're gonna order 1,000 pieces of the Shut Shark in this color. And that's just when everyone started going popsicle sticks, or when the Mike.
Right
This is the irony
Mike
of
V,
it.
yeah.
The Mike V board. So Mike V is a skater exclusively because of Rodney Smith.
Oh, got Rodney Smith.
Rodney
Yeah.
Smith, who started Shut, basically, you know, became friends with Mike, who was not really skateboarding, and was like, "You need to be with me and Chris Pasturis, and we're all going to skate together in New Jersey." And then, you know, Mike is, you know, obviously a demigod of skating, and goes off to go do World, and comes out with this board,
Right.
which is the resolve of how do we keep our foot on the front of the board when we do ollies.
Sure.
That's the answer right there.
Yeah.
And now that board comes out just as there is a warehouse full of Shut Sharks that nobody wants now.
God damn.
Yeah. So that was sort of like the nail in the coffin.
was it, huh?
Yeah. And everybody went away, and Bruno went on to go do great things in film and television.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, super talented stand-up guy.
Yeah.
Well, he's one of my skate mentors. Like when I grew up skateboarding, he was like our ringleader. You know,
Sick.
I have crazy stories of like weird fights I got into, and he was always like the dude who was like he was our gang leader.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, really sidebar, a crazy story. Halloween night 1987, we had an ongoing beef with all the kids who lived in the projects next to the Brooklyn Bridge banks, and we all went skateboarding as a gang, like 40 of us, and ran into some of the kids who were throwing eggs at a stockbroker, and kind of like got off our boards and like were like, and they were acting bugged out. There was like, they had ski goggles on. It was like B-boy era. What? And we were like, kind of like, you're throwing eggs at the stockbroker? And it was like 3 homeboys, like 3 B-boys. And 2 of them ran into the projects. And so there's like 40 of us standing around like, God damn it. Like, we want to go skate to South Street Seaport. Come on. And then one of these kids, this kid, what's his name? Mario Sorrente. He's like a super famous fashion photographer.
Okay.
But he was a skater in our crew back in the day. They hit Mario Sorrente in the face, knock his glasses off, and step on his glasses. 2 dudes.
Okay.
Against 40.
Wow. What?
And we're like, what the fuck's going on? And it's everybody you've ever heard of in skateboarding in New York from that time period. And we're all standing like, what the fuck's going on? And you just hear basically somebody hits a home run out of a baseball stadium. You just hear, and we look, and 150 kids come running out of the projects with bats.
Wow.
The dudes wants to go tell them, and they
It was like a setup, and we were just gotten to the world like a straight Hollywood, the end of the Wanderers, like 100-person gang fight, and like
warriors and shit.
I've never been so scared, and like these guys kind of thought it was funny. You know, like it wasn't like, we need to kill these motherfuckers. It was more like Halloween, motherfucker, you know? Right. And they're running out with like bats. They had like socks with rocks in them, and they're swinging them around. And they're swinging the rocks at us, and I'm blocking them with the skateboard. And we're all so scared, going like, no beef, no beef, no beef. And there's just melee. And then we start getting the better of them, because they weren't taking it seriously, but we're scared to death. So like we were like, people were getting hit with trucks, and it was like no good. Yeah. And then, you know, we all like, where's Bruno? Because he's
the ringleader.
He's the ringleader.
Yeah.
And like he's like, there was two girl skaters with us back in the day. They were like Gina and someone else. I think that was their names. And he's like trying to get them out. And there was like a miscommunication, and we all like broke out, ran into like Wall Street area. And like all of us were like, all the guys were like ripping open bags and smashing bottles to like make little jabber knives. And they're like, and I'm like, let's get somewhere open. And I kind of like tried to talk some sense into everybody. And we ran out to City Hall, which no one was down there. It was just vacant. And we like ran out in the street waiting for them. It was right out of a movie. And they all ran out the block away. And it was like a face-off. And we're like staring at them like, what the fuck are they going to do? What's going on? And this was like when downtown was deserted by the World Trade Centers. And then like they all run back. And then like 2 or 3 of them just start walking towards us. And like, what are they doing? And I'm like, they either have guns or this is a setup. I was like, let's just get the fuck out of here. And we like skated away. And then later on, right after this, I ran into these other knucklehead hoodlums I know. And I was trying to show off like I just got in a huge gang fight. And I like skated up to them. And I'm like a 100-pound kid. And I was like, yo, guys, we just got into this gang fight. And this dude walks up to me who I know, who's like my man, but like an older thug, high on PCP, and he just like grabs me off my board, and he's like, stop struggling and it won't hurt so much. And he's like dragging me in the back, and all my skater friends leave me.
What the hell?
Because these are our like gangster kids who they see all the time. It was just there were 7 murders a day in New York back then. Right. So I'm like being dragged into the back of this like handball court, and I'm like, all right, I'm like looking around like and I'm like, know the guy. I don't know if I want to say his name. His first name's Tommy. Okay. And I'm like, Tommy, it's me, Eli. Like, stop, you're high. And he drags me into the back, and there's like 20 more kids in the back. And they're like, we're going to fuck him up his ass. We're going to fuck this white boy up his ass. I'm like, holy shit. And I'm so little, they like start smacking me into a chain link fence. And I grab the chain link fence, and I'm like, do not let go of this fence. and they're pulling me vertically like a Stretch Armstrong doll.
Oh my god!
And I'm like, oh my god, and then like I feel people like hitting me, and they're like, let the fuck go, and I'm like not letting go, and they start laughing because I'm so scared, and they're just laughing, and then I just hear like, and they just cover me head to toe in shaving cream, and then I get so slippery, I just slip out of there, and I just run for it.
Oh, my
and then I skate all the way back to Jim Moore's house where I know they all went. And but I'm skating down the street so mad. I got abandoned by my crew.
Oh my God.
Everybody in Halloween costumes are pointing at me and laughing because I'm like covered in shaving cream. I'm so heated. And I go to Jim Moore's house like, and then like they let me in and I kick the door open like, you fuckers. And they're like, we couldn't do anything. We couldn't do anything. Because these kids who got me are like connected to the mob, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I was just like, God damn it, where's your fucking shower? And I like took a shower to try and clean myself off. But it was like shit like that happened all the time. You know?
Okay. Okay. Wow.
That sounds chill.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, but it was fun. I mean, you know, it's like no one really got hurt, thank God.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, some of them did get hurt, but the I don't know how it was just how New York was. It was just
right.
And it's just a crazy environment to grow up in.
Yeah.
We've gotten way off topic here, by the way.
Yeah, good story.
But it's a
though.
good
I know.
skate story.
Yeah.
That is 100% accurate. There's no exaggeration. I've actually unexaggerated.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
Wow.
But that was all in one night.
Yeah. And then this is another one to go back to Bruno Musso being the ringleader. In the West Village, summertime, around maybe the same year or maybe a year earlier, we had like lots of beef with the police officers in Washington Square Park. They didn't want us there. I know I was with Aaron Lennox and another skater, and there was an incline bank wall, like a super steep, like this. Wall ride wall.
Sure.
We go and skate it. The people who lived in the building above it hated us, and they would throw bottles of water and knives out the window at us. Yeah,
Knives?
Like
Knives.
like butter knives?
no,
Or
like a steak knife.
That is
Like
terrifying.
and you'd be like, and there'd be like forks and shit. We're like, fuck, man. So we were like skating by, and we're skating around the corner from the wall. And the doorman in the building who knows who we are hates us. He's like yelling at my friends. And I remember looking at them talking to the doorman, and they're like, come on, man, we just want to skate. You know, skateboarding's not a crime nonsense. And I'm skating this way looking backwards. And I'm just like, someone just grabs me. Again, I weigh 100 pounds because I was a real little kid. And I'm just like being lifted up, taken backwards. And I'm like, what's going on? Broad daylight, the middle of the day. And then I get lifted up and body slammed on a fucking car, and I hear all these people laughing, and I'm just getting whapped, and my skateboard whirls away, and my friends take my skateboard, and then like I'm looking, and I get out, and it's like 5 grown Latin King like gangster dudes with like all in black with do-rags with the little yellow to let them know like they're Latin King gangsters, and they're all smoking PCP. That was very popular back then. And I'm like, oh my God. And like I got fucked up. Like I was like cut on my face, and like my friends got my skateboard, and the women who lived in the building who a minute earlier were like, get the fuck out of here. Now they're like, stop hurting that boy, you know? And we got our skateboards and we like skated away, and my friends were like, what, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you hurt? I'm like, no, I'm fucking mad. And like, what do you want to do? I was like, let's go to Washington Square Park and get everybody. And we skated back to Washington Square Park, and half the time no one was there. But we go in, and there was like 10 dudes there with Bruno Musso.
Amazing.
And I'm like hurt, and they're like, Eli just got jumped, and they were like, what happened? And I was like, these fucking guys just jumped me and they beat me up. You know, they didn't take anything, but they were like hitting me, and like it was all a big joke. And he's like, all right. And then he basically goes to everybody like, all right, we're going to go find these guys. If you don't want to get into a fight, don't come with us. And if you think you're going to pussy out, don't come with us, you know?
Okay.
So we all just start skating back to where it happened. And we go back to where the stoop where it started, and they're not there. And then we're like, fuck, I guess they're gone. And then he's like, yeah, what do you want to do? And I was like, you want to keep looking for them? And he was like, you know, a ringleader that way, like sensible, unflapped, we're going to go do this shit. And, you know, and I was like, oh, I don't know where they went. So we skated back to Greenwich Avenue, and we're there, and wait, where the fuck did they go? And as if on cue, I hear this giant break, and we look, and the same dude who attacked me comes running around the corner being chased by 2 gay guys who are like hitting him with things. And they're like, this guy broke the window to our store. He broke the window to our store. And we're like, him? And I go, that's the dude. What? And Bruno Musso's like, are you sure? And I was like, that's the motherfucker. And he was like, don't make a mistake. I was like, watch this. And I like skate towards him. And the dude is running and then stopping to let the gay guys hit him. And then he laughs and runs away again and then stops. And I start skating up and he looks at me and his whole face goes, oh, fuck. And all the skater wheels start skating him and he books. And this guy's going 100 miles an hour. And we're like, zah, zah, zah. And he's so ahead of us. And we're like, fuck, we're never going to get this guy. Also, how do you get off your skateboard going this fast?
Yeah. Right.
We go around a corner. He cuts back to Washington Square Park. And this one kid, Morrow, I think was his name, he came late. And he was looking for us, and he's coming up the street. We're like, Morrow, that's the guy. And Morrow skates up and does a fucking karate kick. Why-ya! And kicks the dude. He trips and stumbles. I pick up my skateboard, and I'm right behind him, and I'm running like this with the trucks out. If you ever hit somebody who you want to hurt with the skateboard, you do it trucks out. You don't hit the person with the grip tape side. That doesn't work.
Sure.
I'm just saying.
Right.
So I have my thing and I'm like, don't fuck this up. Like, don't fuck this up. But you got one shot and I'm right behind the guy and I jump up in the air and I'm like, and it sounded like a coconut. This is all 100% real. And I go, caw, and he stutters, stumbles, I fall. And then everyone runs up and they start hitting him. And then he gets himself up, runs out to Broadway where there's a bunch of crowd and just collapses on the sidewalk. Oh. And just bleeding out of his ears and his mouth.
Oh my God.
And we're like, and then we all run up. And again, Bruno Musso. Also, Bruno, I'm sorry if I'm saying stuff you don't want people to know about you. We were wild kids. And Bruno runs up and he's like, don't hit him, don't hit him, don't hit him. Because then you're just beating someone to death.
Sure.
So and he's just, this guy's out of it. He's done.
Right.
He's done now. Then the gay guys run up and they're like, oh my God, thank you. He came into the store with his friends and they just started like kicking over all the things. And when they were told to leave, they picked up a display case and threw it through the front window.
Oh my God.
And they were like, you guys are our heroes. And I was like, well, thank you, but this guy attacked me too. The cops pull up. They see us. This is the same cops at Washington Square Park. We're a block away.
Oh, no.
And they're like, you fucking skaters, what did you do now? No, these guys saved the day. This guy attacked. And they're like, oh, they try to wake the dude up. He's out cold. They call an ambulance. They take his wallet. They go and run his wallet. And they're like, this guy's got like 6 active warrants. He has like not shown up for any of his like hearings. They're like, you skaters really did something good here.
Oh, wow.
And just like that, we were cool with the cops.
Washington Square Park was open.
Open.
We're good.
Yeah.
Wow.
They were like, the skaters are cool guys. And they like went through everything. And they're like, and you hit him in the head? Well, you hit him in the head. He staggered out here and fell. And you never hit him again. And we're like, nope, never hit him again. This is also true, although I don't believe it. My sister randomly on the way to Washington Square Park walks by and sees the things, sees the dude. And she's like, that's the guy who stole my chain.
Wow.
And I was like, come on, Paige, But, that's what it was like.
It was just, yeah.
It was just utter mayhem.
Great. It sounds like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at Kelly's over there confused. He's never
That
heard
was
any
the
of
craziest story. It's like, I don't, it kind of sounds like Sandlot in a weird way where like kids just running around doing
Yes.
shit. and
Yeah. It literally was like that. It's like a version of Stand By Me.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like
Right.
that's how it was. When you left the house, back for dinner.
You were you were out in the
Out.
streets.
All
Yeah.
day.
You were out in the streets.
There's no cell phones or pagers.
Right.
You had your mom's number. She would be like, call me at 3.
Check
I
in.
got to find a
Check in.
check in to let you know I'm alive. But that was it.
Wow.
So crazy.
So Phat Farm.
Well, listen. I'm guessing that. So what happened in the end with Phat Farm? Let me ask you this: how close when you guys left Phat Farm or was dissolved or whatever happened with that to Zoo York?
That's where I'm at. That's where we are.
Okay, how much period of time was that though?
Phat Farm to Zoo York.
Yeah.
Same amount of time. A year later.
A year later.
Because
Gotcha.
I'm at Phat Farm working.
Yeah.
Bruno and Rodney have shuttered. Shut.
Right.
and they left all their skateboards there. It's another New York legend that they had the sub basement at Mott Street. Where no one wanted to go. You had to walk down like 2 or 3 flights of stairs to get down there. And it was ice cold. Okay. And that's where they used to store meat.
Gotcha.
And the only people down there were Shut, who had the larger space with all the skateboards, hundreds at least, skateboard decks. And then across the hall was the recording studio or the practice studio for the Beastie Boys and for Sonic Youth.
Okay.
And we would sit there, at Shut all day long. You could just hear them Beastie Boys playing drums or guitars. They were always like jamming and noodling and playing keyboards. There was not really any rapping.
Right.
There's a video, I think it's called 3 DJs or 3 MCs and 1 DJ with Mixmaster Mike. Okay. That's the actual red room, which was the recording studio.
Oh, dope.
And that was across the hall from where Shut was.
Amazing.
When Shut closed, Bruno and Rodney left all the boards. Where are they going to put 1,000, 2,000 skateboards?
Yeah. They just, wow.
And they owed the landlord money. So throughout, after this period from 89 on, throughout New York, on occasion, you'd go into a bodega and there would be like 5 warped Shut Sharks on a rack for sale.
Wow.
That the landlord probably just sold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gave them to
money.
people.
Right.
We still find them. They're all fucked up.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Crazy.
Yeah. So Bruno went on to go do his amazing career and stopped acting like a knucklehead with me.
Okay.
He's a responsible adult.
I mean, even from the stories, he sounded responsible.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of my dad died when I was 10. So like a lot of my learned behavior about like how to behave is from Bruno. Who I look, not just Bruno, but he's one of the people where I was like, oh, I see.
Right.
Don't just beat the guy when you've knocked him out.
Right.
It sounds like
Let me stop myself
from
here.
going back to Sandlot. It sounds like Ricky. Was it Ricky the Jet Rodriguez? Is that his name? Remember the leader dude?
Oh, from the movie?
Yeah.
This is a special movie to you. I know I've seen
is
it,
a
but
special movie.
I don't remember any of the characters.
Because that was I never lived that lifestyle that you're living. That was the closest thing I ever saw. But there's a leader like that.
He's
who
the
just-
alpha male.
Yeah. He just, like, takes care of everyone. Yeah.
I was fortunate to be, under this guy's tutelage.
Right.
And also, Rodney and Bruno, those were the guys who were like, when I drew the original Shut crest logo and the barbed wire thing. They're original logos. And I even remember at the time when it was like 85 and Bruno and Rodney, they took me out for a bagel and a cup of coffee or a soda to be like, we're starting a skateboard company. And I was just like, what the fuck? In New York? And they're like, yeah, it's going to be called Shut, and we want you to make a crest with like the cityscape and like all New York stuff. And I was just like, I didn't have that vision. Like I didn't have that ability.
Okay.
I always thought like I was like living sort of like a California fantasy. Like skateboarding's not for New York. Skateboarding is a California thing, and I like doing it. Fuck everybody else, but eventually I'm going to end up doing whatever a New Yorker does.
Okay.
But yeah, those guys really had the vision of it all. So it ends. Rodney is now in dire straits, and he's like has nowhere to live. So I ended up. My mom moved out of our apartment that we grew up in, but we owned it.
Okay.
So until we sold it, I got the 3-bedroom apartment to myself, and I let Rodney live there.
Huh.
So Rodney was living with me, and that's where, and I was doing Phat Farm. We were starting Phat Farm. And so Rodney was like, yeah, I think I'm going to do another skateboard company called Zoo York. They already had a Zoo York model that they sold through Shut.
Oh, gotcha.
And I was like, oh, that's cool. And Rodney went and hunted down Mark Edmonds, who is the president and founder of the Soul Artists of Zoo York, and also Andy Kessler, who at the time was not involved in skateboarding. He had given that up and was working at a pool hall. And we went and talked to him and said, you want to be down with this? Could we have your blessing? And he was like, you got my blessing. Because we all at this point there was Shut. He did Shut, so and we
like Rodney's moving on. So like hey, I'm going to do this thing.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
We found Mark Edmonds living, I think, in New Mexico, and told him, and he was like, "Yeah, you got the blessing. Just stick to the message, which is to represent New York City street culture and get the name out there in a graffiti sort of way." And and Rodney was doing all that. Meanwhile, I'm at Phat Farm, and I'm sort of like, God damn it, like I don't own any of this.
Right.
But what I did do is convince Russell Simmons that the only way that to make the graphics, I needed top tier equipment. sidebar, at this point, behind the scenes, I've not mentioned this, but I'm like a computer nerd since jump. And my mom was a art director and a graphic designer. And through her connections, I got a Mac 2, which was the first color computer ever made by Macintosh after the Lego head black and white ones, and it was made for doing computer graphics for magazines.
Gotcha.
She got me the beta versions of Photoshop and Illustrator in 87 and 88. So I was already like
laying stuff out and working with stuff.
that's how I made the passes for Trip.
Okay.
And I had like a little gig, and I was doing graphics for people, and
Sick.
and so when I went and worked for Russell, I knew what you needed to have on an industrial professional graphics level. Because I learned Photoshop and Illustrator, I was doing a side gig as a Photoshop Illustrator mercenary. Big design firms who had famous award-winning designers who were now in their 60s, they weren't going to know how to turn a computer on. So they would hire me, pay me by the hour, and the designer would be like, draw a circle, put a triangle there.
Gotcha.
So that's how I did it. And from doing that, that's like the top tier, Madison Avenue level of design. I was like, okay, I need this Macintosh computer. I need this, and everyone, the industry standard, because you couldn't print in color, was a Canon laser copier that you couldn't buy. You had to lease it. And it was like $36,000 a year to lease this giant machine.
Wow.
And in my stupid fucking head, all I knew was this is the only way you could print in color. And like I would get like skateboard graphics or pictures from friends of mine, and I would go to work and make color copies. Right. These things were like $5 a print back in the day. Because
Russell's paying for it, though. It's all good.
Well, Russell doesn't know yet.
Oh, well, I know.
Yeah.
But he's still paying for it.
So I'm like, I need a color copier, and you have to get this color copier, the CLC 800. What I didn't factor in was that everywhere I worked, they had employed multiple, these are design firms, that would have, 100 employees who all use this one color copier. So the fact that it costs $30,000 a year to lease somehow works out. I convinced Russell, you need to get me this thing. And they came in and installed it for me. And they were just like, is this just for you? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, who the fuck are you? And I'm like, I'm just doing this graphic thing, this new company called Phat Farm. And they're like, people, this is for if you have like 30 graphic designers working for you. And I was like, don't tell him. It's like,
All good.
actually, believe it or not, later on, I become pretty close with Nadas Kalpis, who's gone on to be a graphic designer at this point, because he in California got the same notion. And he got himself in his house one of these things.
Wow.
So he and I bonded on you've got your own CLC.
Yeah, me
He was
too.
like, me too. And he and I developed all these really weird techniques because we had the machine at our disposal, and we were like, all right, what happens if you open up the door and jam it? It automatically shuts off halfway through, and you pull it out, and then it's still dusty, and you can blow and smear it. And we were doing lots of weird stuff.
Interesting.
But that's later on. At this point, I got the CLC. I'm at Phat Farm. I'm making the graphics. And Rodney wants money to go and start Zoo. And he's talking to people, and nothing goes through. Russell's business partner, Larry Schatz, who started Phat Farm, is one of the investors in Phat Farm. His son gets a job being the office manager at Phat Farm, and he and I become friends. And I'm like, this guy's really cool. Knows nothing about skateboarding, but has a business degree, and really is into wow, this is so cool, skateboarding. And Rodney has another failed business meeting, and at this point I'm like, we should try to do this because maybe I could have some ownership in Zoo York. And he was like, yeah, and it doesn't work. And he's like, all I need is $20,000 to start Zoo. And I'm literally look at Adam Schatz, and I was like, Adam, I was like, what? I was like, you got $20,000 to start a skateboard company? He was like, fuck yeah.
Just like that.
That's the best.
Not him, but him and his frat brothers. They could all get together and each kick in $5,000.
Okay.
And I was like, got you the money. And that was went and had a meeting at Adam's house, and we were like, all right, we'll be 3-way partners. And I was like, and on top of that, I will keep working at Phat Farm, and I'll use all their equipment so we can have the best equipment, and I don't have to, we don't have to pay anything. By this point, Rodney had already. Rodney's great ability is sort of like, the New York, the East Coast skate shaman.
Yeah.
He knew everybody at every shop, could call them up and be like, who's the hot kid? Oh, in Philly, Ricky Oyola, Robbie Gangemi. Right. And he already was like kind of accumulating these kids who were like not at didn't want to move to California or just like weren't really, didn't know how or whatever.
Gotcha.
So, one of the great things about Zoo is like we just right off the bat had this incredible team, just like Shut did. But that was because, if you were skating on the East Coast, that's who else are you going to skate for? It was just us.
Zoo York.
Yeah, it's just Zoo York.
Pretty much.
And we went and found this spot in the meat market, literally across the street from where Mars was.
Amazing.
Literally the same fucked up street. You're like, it was disgusting. It smelled like meat. There's just dead carcasses and prostitutes everywhere. No one goes down there. And I'm like trapped. I'm fucking trapped by this block, man. I'm back on the same block again. And then I was like, and then we sold the house.
Okay.
So I got an apartment right down the street and from the meat market. So I could just walk.
Perfect.
Walk to Zoo, and I could walk to Phat Farm. I was equidistant.
Gotcha.
And my tactic was get up in the morning, go to work, which was Phat Farm. I had my own office, do Phat Farm work all day, do my role there. And then the last person to leave was the receptionist who left at like 6 or 7. And then I would just keep working. And I would just work on Phat Farm stuff, making it, putting up graphics on the walls. And then as soon as the dude left, call up Rodney, boop, boop, boop. Rodney and Adam come over, and they'd come over, and then we'd sit there and do Zoo York, and we had the CLC color printer.
Yes.
If you went to a trade show, everyone, unless you were like, Santa Cruz who had like money, and you could actually go and get shit full color printed, you were literally giving away black and white flyers,
right?
Xeroxed, and looking at the graphic like, oh, is it blue and orange? You don't know. Right. So suddenly we were like, I'm on Russell Simmons, thank you very much, his dime. I'm like churning out hundreds and hundreds of Zoo York flyers.
Amazing.
And like,
wow.
Yeah. Wow. And that was like, and Rodney and Adam saw the value of this machine.
Right.
Like suddenly we went to the ASR show and we had like a little booth. We had a booth we shared with like an early 555 Soul, early Zoo York, and Futura and Stash, who had, I forget the name, the Phillies Blunt Company. Or, I think it was beyond that, but it was like we had this little like 10 by 10 square foot booth. I think Russ Sir was there too. It was like all the New York heavy hitters. We were in this little tiny booth at the ASR show, and we were just doing business, man. Like it was like people were stoked.
Crazy.
Yeah, and then we all agreed I would continue to work at Phat Farm until they fired me,
right,
or until we could afford this machine.
That was the ticket, the machine.
The machine, get the computer and the machine, the whole kit, and when you got the machine, the Canon printer, you could scan stuff in,
right,
so you could save some money. I was making an argument, but still the same. There's like a fucking tech had to come once a month to calibrate the machine.
Wow.
And this guy would just like laugh every time, and he was like, "You again?" He was like, "You just get the machine for yourself." And I was like, "Yeah, but I'm doing the work of 20 people."
Sure. Wow. Did Russell ever find out?
No. Maybe now, he doesn't care. I run into...
He's a big fan of the show. I know he's watching. He's hitting me up. I love the show.
I run into him on occasion, and I have to reintroduce myself every fucking time. And I'm always like, you don't remember me? I started Phat Farm with you.
Wow.
That is insane.
That's crazy.
Straight up. Like,
wait, so did you end up buying that printer?
No, you never own it.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Did you end up leasing the printer?
Yeah, no, I left Phat Farm. So Zoo, the success of Zoo, so there's a lot of things, and I know this is a skate show, so I could get into it. Yeah. I usually don't get into this. So, when we went to go do it, it was like, how do we market this? And like, unlike Shut, which is doesn't mean anything. It means a door shutting or something is closed. Zoo York is perfect because it is the entire idea in 2 words.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. The name is genius.
Yeah, well,
genius.
I agree. I did not come up with that. That is a Mark Edmonds and a Futura and a Andy Kessler creation.
Wow.
But as if the first thing we made, like one of the first things we made was, a Zoo York hoodie. Mm-hmm. And I remember they just came in and they were cool. And I remember putting it on and going skating with Mike Hernandez, and I was just standing there, and some a professor at Columbia University, a black guy. Remember him walking towards me, and I'm like, and it was the nighttime, and he looks at me, and he was like, Zoo York. He was like, that's brilliant. He was like, I love that. I get this immediately, and I was like, thank you very much.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like,
validation.
Yeah, but validation outside.
Yeah. Right.
If you can get someone to grasp it, there's a great story. That super famous video game, Angry Birds.
Yeah, of course.
So the guy who invented it, I guess he's in Sweden or something. The story is he was trying to make iPhone video games for years and nothing worked. And he came up with Angry Birds right before Christmas. Uploaded it to his phone, went to the family Christmas party, and was showing people it, and then couldn't find his phone, and then found the grandmother.
Oh, that's
camped out, couldn't stop playing it, and he was like, "That's it.
That's it."
If you get grandma doing this,
Yeah. What do you want to know about it? Because I could go into the designy aspect of it, or
I just like the behind the scenes stuff because even in the documentary, you were You wrote Zoo York 1,000 times to try to get that one that was
at
right.
Phat Farm.
Yeah.
At Phat Farm. That was at Phat Farm.
When it was brewing up there.
Amazing.
Yeah, there's a graffiti writer who passed away, one of the greats, Dondi White, and he when I was a kid, there's a difference between doing pieces and doing tags, and Dondi seemed to have the maximum ability, and I loved his tags, and when he would write stuff, he had this really amazing hand style, and I always aspired to do that. So when it came, what I wanted to originally do is also who was also associated with the Zoo York graffiti crew and soul artist is Zephyr.
Okay.
Who took the graffiti tag Zephyr from the Z-Boys because he was a skateboarder. So the Z-Boys, Zephyr skates, Z-Boys, he is in New York City, is really into Tony Alva and all that, and then decides to steal Zephyr as his tag. And Zephyr had this amazing one-line ZEPHYR, and just always was in New York was revered as having one of the best tags. He had a tag what we would call a perma spot, which is a public spot that's easy to get to, but a perma spot could be it's a spot that no one can get to, so that no one can ever erase it or go over you.
But this one was a spot people could get to.
This is I don't know what you would even call it because it doesn't exist anymore. It's a place of honor where you're such a big graffiti writer and it's such a big public space that no one would ever go over it. And it was on the corner. It was on the southeast corner of Washington Square Park next to the Dance Skin Ballet shoe company store, and there was this huge, it was a 4-foot tag Zephyr right on eye level on the sidewalk, and it was just there forever since and I would always be like, damn, no one's going over this. They really respect this dude.
Crazy.
So when I went to go do the Zoo York tag, that was my first thought, was I'm going to do something like Zephyr because it's the lineage of skateboarding and graffiti. I just couldn't do it. I went through, tried to do that, and then ultimately it was just who's the best? Who has your favorite hand style? And it was Dondi. And from that point, I think he might have even passed away at that point. He might have just died at that point. But I was just on hell bent on trying to duplicate his chisel tip way of writing Dondi with Zoo York. But that's how come the O's look weird, because I was trying to incorporate his D's, and it just evolved. Paper, it's like skating.
Yeah. You keep
I want to
trying-
learn
yeah.
how to kickflip. I
Right.
just keep fucking
And
doing
you're
it.
your own worst critic, so you need to get it perfect.
Yeah.
Was there any time where you were trying to just do other types of logos and being like, oh, go, or did you have this vision already?
One of the funny things about Zoo was, Larry Clark, he goes and does kids. If you see pictures of him, he's wearing like the first hat we made, which is sort of like an early version of the ZY that is an exact ripoff of the Yankees, the NY.
Yeah.
I think Adam was a little bit worried we were going to get sued by the Yankees. And also, I was just like, it's too easy.
It's too easy.
It's too easy.
Right.
Let's not ever do it again. So we did that one run of hats. Larry still wears it to this day. He has it.
Crazy.
Later on, when we got bought out by Echo,
Yeah.
they were just like, we started, we left the skateboarding atmosphere and like went out into the public persona.
Right.
And it was like, we need something that some people who don't skateboard are going to relate to.
Yep.
And I was like, you know what? Like, if we're going to sell out like this, then what about the ZY?
Gotcha.
And that's when we went back to doing the Yankee style ZY.
Interesting.
Another fun fact, after I left Zoo, Zoo was one of the advertisers in the Yankee outfield for a few years.
Oh,
Amazing.
wow.
Yeah, so
Wow.
when, someone hit a home run, like the Chaz
it is.
Ortiz years.
Yeah.
there was like the Zoo York out there.
Well, I want to get into the whole buying out by Echo and everything, but just like forming the team, and then when did you guys actually realize that this was bigger than skateboarding, and you guys had to really it was transcending.
It was
skating.
mainstream.
It was
right?
going mainstream.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a huge story before that. Like, is anyone going to respond to this? And we're like, Rodney had a really great. He was close friends with Fausto.
Okay.
And Fausto basically was cutting us deals for like super cheap banner ads or column ads, and like I would make an ad. They're like, we got an ad for Thrasher, and I would like make an ad, and then they were like, oh no, it's got to go sideways, and and I would stretch it out in Photoshop, and it always looked garbage, and I was like becoming really like mad because I was trying to elevate skateboarding to like cooler advertising. This was also like when everybody jumped ship. It was like when all the skaters took over the skate industry, and like Girl came out, and and you would look at like Big Brother or or Trans World, and everyone was ripping off logos. So you couldn't tell whose ad was whose. As a graphic designer at that point, I would like flip through and be like, all right, I know this is Tide. You've ripped off the fucking Tide soapbox. Congratulations. But like, what company is this? And I'd be like, oh, it's Woodstock Skateboards, or what? No disrespect to you, Woodstock, Simon Woodstock, wherever you are.
Yeah.
But it was like that. And I was like, there's no cohesive marketing. There was such a reaction against, oh, that's a Powell ad. That's, a Santa Cruz ad. Because those graphics are like, legendary.
Iconic, yeah. So you wanted your graphics and your ads to stand out. You wanted people to know that it was a Zoo York
The
ad.
goal was, when you're flipping through the magazine, something has to be like, that's a Zoo York ad.
Right.
And it had its own evolution. The first ad that I did a couple like graffiti tags and New York grimy shit, but it was all more like ambiguous. Like the idea was to be like, what the fuck am I looking at? Where are you coming from? But the first ad that like Robbie Gangemi was like, I want to do an ad. I'm coming to New York, and I was like, I'm gonna go shoot an ad. And what trick should I could do? What trick should I could do? What trick could I do? Where's the spot? And I remembered there was a weird, anomalous, very low, kinked hand railing in the middle of Central Park, not down some stairs, but down like a little dip.
Okay.
And I was like, hey, you could go try this out, because it's weird. I don't know. And I took him there, and he was really like not into it. We were with Ivan Perez, who was also skating for Zoo. And it was me, Ivan, and Robbie Gangemi. And, I showed him the thing, and he was like, yeah, where are you going to shoot it? And there was a whole thing about like in skateboarding, everyone always wants to shoot the skater's face. You don't want to see the skater's butt shot.
Yeah.
Right.
But I looked up a tree, and I was like, oh, I can climb up the tree, because you couldn't really see because there was no stairs, what this was.
Gotcha.
So I climbed up the fucking tree, and I was like, had my little motor drive, which sucked. And I was like, all right, yeah, can you do this? And Ivan it was a summertime, he took his shirt off, and he had his tattoo on his back. It says Perez. And I got the motor sequence. He skates up, and he does a board slide, I think, or a lip slide down this little kink thing and skates away. And when he landed it, I got Ivan Perez clapping with his hands over his head, like, yeah. And then I came back and I was like, I got a sequence of, Robbie Gangemi doing a rail, and was very excited. And I kind of started to lay it out. And then Adam Arati was just like, yeah, we don't have money. We don't have money for a full page ad. Again, we got to do the column ad. I was like, God damn it. And I was like, by this time, I was so sick of making ads that I had to alter at the last minute, because there's like a lack of communication. People are like, yeah, you got it. If you don't send it, but if you don't get on FedEx by today, you're not going to get it into the thing. And
Sure.
So it's a nightmare. Nowadays, you take a picture, put it on Instagram, you can make an ad. It ends up. This was like a week-long ordeal.
Right. And you got to send the ad in.
Besides that, you got to make films. Like you have to take it to a service bureau, and they have to like print you out CMYK films and put them in envelopes and mail them. Yeah, it's a disaster. And I was so mad. And I remember like sitting down, losing my shit, like, God damn it, like this is never going to work. We don't have any money. And then I was like looking at the frame, and I was like, how can I put these pictures in there? They're going to be too small. And I just remember like kind of like going through the, because it was early Photoshop, so you'd have to open one picture at a time.
Okay.
And I was going through seeing like where I could crop, and then like opened up the last shot. And I think I went to the bathroom or something. And I came back, and it was the railing, Gangemi skating away, and Ivan Perez clapping. So you never see the trick, but clearly something happened on the rail because this guy's applauding it.
Wow.
And I was like, you know what? That's the ad. And I went, and that was the first ad. I was like, I'm going to start changing the way that people are looking at things and trying to do things unconventionally.
Okay.
Wow.
And everyone was like, yo, that's crazy. What did he do?
Right.
Does it matter? And then after that, they started like giving us bigger and more ads. And I was originally going to start doing graffiti tags and running with the tag, but I thought for the vast majority of people who were reading Thrasher, skaters would not understand what it said. They wouldn't read that it said Zoo York. So I committed to doing Zoo York and various different ideas. And then the thing that really held it together was I went and got the whole team together in the office, and I had a couple of fonts. And I was like, listen, no more willy-nilly font that's going to change based on whatever, lunch you had. We are going to stick to a font. It's going to be the corporate font. And like asked people what they thought. And ultimately we ended on Futura Condensed Regular, which is the font in the gutter text.
Oh.
And then that kind of evolved where we did another ad, and I don't think like I gave photo credit to the photographer.
Oh, ouch.
Yes. They were very upset
to
this particular photographer. So I was like, all right, I'm never going to do that again. And, had to go write the photographer's name. Then I was writing it, and I wrote his name out, and I was like, well, if the fucking photographer is getting credit, I want credit. So I didn't want to write my name, so I started writing Ocular. So I was writing Ocular on there. And as I did that, I was like, realized there was like all this other shit I wanted to talk about, about like this photo, or it's wintertime in New York and you don't know how lucky you have it if you're not stuck in the snow. And I started like writing these like messages in the gutter text.
Okay.
And that kind of like became this signature thing with Zoo York. It became like this, like, it was like my little evolution of a genius thing. As I said, I was like super close with Nodis. I would stay in the back of his house over here in Venice, and we were like really into graphic design. And he and I went to the 3rd Street Promenade to have, this is actually one of the proudest moments of my life. On my deathbed, I'll think of this moment. And he and I are like, eating dinner outside on the sidewalk at the 3rd Street Promenade, which is an accomplishment having dinner with Nadas to begin with.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And this crew of little skaters comes by and they go to the newsstand. We can see it. And they all grab the new Thrasher and they all sit down on their boards and they're sitting there. Me and Nadas are talking. And then Nadas is like, Eli. And I'm like, what? And he's like, look, watch this. And I'm like, what? He's like, I've been seeing this, but check this out. And we're looking at the kids, and then the kids are going through it, and then they all stop, and then they all turn the magazine sideways and start reading it. He's like, they're looking at your ad.
Wow.
And I was like,
tight.
holy fuck, really? That was like, I got chills just saying that. I was like, that's the best thing ever, you know? And then they would read what I had to say.
That's like for us as skaters, seeing somebody with your pro board, like in the wild.
And they were doing it down the side. You were still doing the side.
Yeah, I'd always do it on the gutter text.
No, these were full page spreads.
Full page spreads.
But
Oh no, I'm
text.
sorry. They were full page spreads. We evolved to full page spreads.
Okay.
Yeah, I know you're all the way over there. You might not. And actually, it got so Chris Naratko, when he was writing for Big Brother, he went on tour with the zoo guys for something, and then he was like, "Oh, I want to do gutter text for the whole article."
Oh,
So
sick.
instead of like writing captions, everything was
on the
I did gutter
okay.
text for this Big Brother thing.
So with the Zoo York thing now, I mean, because there was a couple different iterations of Zoo York, right?
Yeah.
It kind of came this and then it changed, then it changed.
I'm actually interested in your perception of what the iterations were. Let me know. What do you think the iterations are?
Well, I mean, it's the team, right? It was
Okay.
like the team was this team, and then Sal Barbier brought in his team.
Okay.
And then there was like, so there was different, like, different eras.
Right. So it's
almost.
like the beginning of Zoo to like 1999.
Yeah.
Is essentially
Is that when Sal brought in?
No, that was around like the Forrest Kirby and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like 2001.
2001.
20 years ago.
Okay. That's crazy.
Yeah, I was like, listen, Quim Cardona. There's so many guys who I love, skaters. Zared Bassett, Danny Supa.
Oh my God.
Jeff Pang was our team manager. I mean, Jeff Pang's my best friend and like my skateboard idol.
But this was right around the same time as Echo coming in.
Yes. So this is what happened. This is good to be talking to skateboarders about this because
Nobody else knows.
No one else
Right,
knows.
right.
So you get to a certain point, you get to a magnitude where there's only so much zoo stuff you can sell. You know, the shop.
This is a worldwide brand now. I mean,
No,
you got
this is this. I'm getting to how the Echo thing happened.
okay,
So we're still in New York City. We're on 425 West 13th Street in the meatpacking district, just operating out of this warehouse with you see in the documentary Matthew Barney's doing all his artwork, and it was like really exciting, fun times. And we start Illuminati. Well, basically, here's the idea. Ricky's like, you guys are in New York. Zoo York's doing good. I'm from Philly, and I want my own shit. And me and Ricky kind of bonded on the conspiracy theory of the Illuminati and secret societies.
Okay.
Which I find fascinating, but am not a Bobby Puglio over, right?
Oh, he's deep with it, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yes, and I'm
It's a numbers game.
for him it certainly is, and I'm also interested in it mostly because of the aesthetics. The hand symbols and the clothes they wear and how the architecture.
Like what could be done with it a lot.
Yeah,
Right.
and it was really just the architecture. Like the Freemasons are the Freemasons. Because they had the secret knowledge of how to build stones and make cathedrals and fortresses and castles, and that
they
basically
didn't want to teach anybody else how to do
right.
that.
That kept them from being peasants and serfs, and ultimately coming to America and maybe helping found this country. So I was really into that stuff, and and this is before the internet, so I had like books and shit, and there's also like all these weird conspiracy theories about the pyramids, and that's how come it's on our dollar bill, and the idea of the elitists are at the top, and then as it goes wider, the masses kind of support the societal structure. And Ricky Oiler was really into this.
Gotcha.
So Ricky was like, I want to start my own skateboard company, and I was like, Illuminati, let's do that. And
Okay.
he loved it. It was going to be Matt Reasons and Serge Tranowski. And I was like, got to like finally do something different than Zoo. It wasn't like people like, yo, we were the yo company. It was like, I'm sick of doing fucking cityscapes with a tag, or whatever,
Challenge yourself a little bit.
Always challenge yourself. Always want to go do. And on top of that, I had a whole stockpile of like fucking awesome shit that was just inappropriate for Zoo.
Gotcha.
And I would show it to Oyola, and he was like, yeah, this is it. Then also, Rodney and Adam and I met. One of the, if you're going to start a company, this was like the smartest thing that we did. We were having trouble, especially with our success. You get amped, and then you basically shoot yourself in the foot. Would you shit the bed? You act like an asshole. Okay. And we started to do dumb stuff. Luckily for us, there was like a miscommunication. I don't want to bore you with all of the details, but we were trying to make our own concave. And there was a miscommunication with people who had 3D printing technology to make the concave that I was like, oh yeah, this looks good. And then inadvertently agreed for them to manufacture this thing that would cost so much money that it was going to put us out.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
Yeah. And we didn't discuss price.
Okay.
These guys were just like, we're delivering this thing. Where's our $50,000 or whatever it
They
was?
just went.
Wow.
And we were like, you're not getting a dime. We never signed anything. And they're like, but you guys were so cool. And we're like, yeah, I know we're cool, but cool people would have people sign contracts and let them know that they're going to be paying. It was like
crazy.
this type of thing. And Adam and me and Rodney were like this is going to, we couldn't pay our pros. Like it was like, became like an issue. And my father, my mom is also owned a successful business at the time. She was doing computer graphic headhunting and was super famous. All of my friends who did computer graphics got their jobs through my mom.
Oh,
and my mom had it was making dough. Like she was caking out.
Okay.
And we told her, she actually ended up, because the meat market was being renovated, she wanted to get a loft. So she moved literally across, like I could open up the Zurich window and be like, Ma! And she could come to the window.
Okay.
We fucked up. And we told her a problem. And she was like, you need a business manager. And we're like, well, that's what Adam does. He goes, no, he's a business enabler. You need a guy who you voluntarily give yes or no, power to.
Gotcha.
And we're like, well, you got to sign contracts? No, you don't have to do that. Turns out that my dad, who died when I was 10, his old business partner does this professionally now.
Wow.
Huh.
I can't remember his name now. Oh God, it'll come to me. But
Yeah,
my mom was hooked us up with him.
Okay.
He came over and was like, hadn't seen me since I was like 7. And he was like, you made all this? And he was like, yeah. And he was like, all right, tell me what you do. I don't care what you're doing skateboards. What do you want to do? How much money are you making? And we're like, yeah, we want to go and make this. We want to go and do this. And he's like, that's not happening. He was like, you can't afford to do that. If this is something you want to make skateboard trucks, hypothetically, you need to go and allocate money to that. And when you can get to this much money, then you can go into making skate. It was the only thing that saved Zoo York.
Crazy.
We were going to be like a flash in the pan. Harvey, that was his name.
Harvey.
Yeah.
Good old Harv.
God bless Harvey. Harvey was like, he'd come in every 2 weeks. He was like a retired wealthy businessman. He would come in every 2 weeks and we'd have our meeting of ideas. We want to do this. We're going to get a bigger trade show booth. No, you're not.
He brought you back down to reality.
Yeah, he's sober. He's our sober master.
So sober.
And I don't mean sober like we were high or drunk,
I
but
get you.
sobering,
Right.
So Harvey was really the guy who was like, yeah, you've got to figure out what you want to do. It looks like, we all realize there's only so many Zoo York hoodies people are going to buy. There's only so many boards that Chappie could make. There's a whole thing we talk about Chappie and the wood mill and how that happened. But we decided that we were going to go and make a distribution company, become a deluxe or a dwindle.
In New York.
East
Coast.
And our first company, other skateboard company, is going to be Illuminati, and we're going to start a wheel company that we called Empire State Urethane. And we took out ads. We hired Peter Bisi as our pro. He didn't skate for Zoo yet at the time.
Okay.
He skated for Empire. And Harvey was managing this, and that was the direction we were going to go into, which was going to be like start just making more and more skateboard companies. And then a few things happened in succession. I'm doing this is historically a little bit inaccurate. This takes a couple of years.
Sure.
But what happens is, the first thing that happens is a guy whose name I'm not going to say, he was our t-shirt. He's a friend of mine to this day.
Okay.
He is so key and intrinsic to street culture, but is very private gentleman. When we started making t-shirts at Phat Farm, he was the guy who we went to in the city who was like making t-shirts. He made t-shirts for Calvin Klein, but saw, all right, graphic t-shirts are the future. And I had to connect with him, and we got along really well. We'll talk about this mysterious man very briefly.
Okay.
We went to him to go make shirts. Because how are you going to make t-shirts? Right. We don't know screen printers. I went to him, love the idea. I love what you're doing, Eli. Like, I'm going to go do this. There were some mistakes made, but like he was super committed. He was like, all right, well, I can hook you up with these shirts. I have overruns of shirts from Calvin Klein. You can have these. So like we had like, everyone had like Hanes beefy tees, and we had these like shirts that you couldn't get anywhere else.
Gotcha.
Differentiation strategies.
Yeah.
Every time this happened, we were like trying to do that. Then I came in and we were like, complaining about money problems. And he was like, oh, listen, the Japanese are actively looking for partners to license your brand in Japan. And he was like, look at this brand I made. I just came up with it. It was a silly idea, but he licensed it to Japan. And I saw that and I was like, say no more, fam. And I literally was like, I got our money problems. I went back to Phat Farm, locked myself in there, and I made a whole, this is Zoo York. This is the t-shirts you can make. There's such a great opportunity for brand expansion, especially in Japan, honorable Japanese businessman. And I made this like super slick, color printed out at Phat Farm book. I walked back to this guy's office and I was like, flip-hap, check this out. And he was like, holy fuck. He was like, this just shit on anything he ever did. And he was like, I showed it to him. He's like, Eli, he's like, this is just amazing. He was like, fucking amazing. In fact, guess who's coming here? I have a meeting with right now. I was like, what? He was like, some Japanese business investors. I was like, well, go get him, cat. That's great. I'm going to go back down to Zoo. Got on a subway, took the subway ride back, got back to Zoo. Oh, how was the meeting with this guy? And I was like, oh, it's great. We'll call him KM. I was like, how was it? Great. Ring, done.
Wow.
I was like, what? He was like, those Japanese company came in. They're one of the biggest corporations in Japan, and they want to license you exclusively in Japan and for this much money. And we were like, what? Wow. We were so stoked. This guy like totally hooked it up. Later on, he went and secured before Echo, he now was like, oh, I'm right here in the thick of it. So he licensed the American clothing brand for Zoo and Woo Wear. So for a couple of years in this gentleman's business, in an office was Woo Wear and Zoo York.
Okay.
And we were like always hanging out and like, I was like, I filmed you and made this video.
Yeah, right?
They didn't know what we were talking about. So this gentleman just where he is today, he's highly involved and key in Supreme now. That's where he's ended up. So KM is super important to all this.
Sure.
But this is kind of like before Echo. So while the Zoo York and Woo Wear thing is kind of going on, we're trying to do Illuminati and this the wheel brand. Yeah. We make all these wheels. We try to sell them to all of our shops, and they're like, okay, what about Zoo wheels? Can we get Zoo York wheels? Yeah, but what about Empire? That's cool, but kids want the Zoo York. Mm-hmm. So we were like, fuck. Like now we're like, Peter BC, you want to skate for Zoo York wheels because we're not doing this. I'll just skate for Zoo York. So that's how we got Peter BC, and then Illuminati's doing good. People are like, yo, that's bugged. We're taking out full page ads. I'm doing crazy shit like putting out, asking kids in like, I'm doing whole ads of just dense text, like reading. And I'm like, I want you, the skateboarder to learn about the importance of copper to the to Freemasonry and also to the development of the United States. Anybody who writes me a book report, I'll send them a fucking sticker or something, and I would get book reports. Kids would go and turn them in schools. I had school teachers writing me with the book report. Like, one of my students who's like a terrible student came in and like did this whole thing about, Paul Revere and how Paul Revere was a silversmith, and then how it went into copper and how copper's used in all of the rooftops and all of Washington D.C. And I was like, wow, this is great. Like, you could interact with all these kids and like freshen minds. Boom, cease and desist.
Yeah, from the Illuminati.
From the Illuminati.
They must have been.
They're trading cards.
They the trading cards. I was going to go into a Assassin's Creed thing, but like, no, the Illuminati card company sent us a cease and desist because games and sporting goods are under the same auspices category.
Interesting.
They were like,
Insane.
I'm like, you guys we even called them up to plead with them. Like, this is skateboards. And they were like, nope, no.
Wow.
They're like, what if we want to make skateboards one day?
So Illuminati was done.
Done. And we were like,
wow, it's crazy.
we're like, Ricky.
game. Yeah.
And they were like, what? And we're like, we can't use the name. And they were like, are you fucking kidding me? So they went and made Silver Star.
Yeah.
We let them free to go and follow the Freemasonry path. To late nights with.
I'm surprised you didn't keep them under your umbrella.
There's nothing to keep. It's Ricky Oyola. He can do what he wants.
Yeah.
True, but like he sold a lot of boards for you guys. You figured you want to keep them in the same building.
I mean,
Sometimes you
Ricky
gotta let 'em
had
roam
a
free.
Yeah, he's a Philly guy. And at the time, it was more so like we were the abandoned stepchildren in the Northeast. So if you were from Boston, if you were from Philly, we could all come together because that's all we had. Right. There was no one else around. But now we were like getting more and more skaters. People were trying to start competing New York City brands. Mm-hmm. And he was like, I don't want anything to do with New York.
Right.
So he went off to go do his own thing, as he should. He's
sure.
Ricky Oyola and I were Z-Boys together. We were
teammates.
We were teammates.
Amazing. I love that.
How crazy is that? Yeah. I didn't even know that. Like, he was skating for me and was like, remember we're in the Z video together? I was like, no.
Wow.
He was like, I was the guy ripping. You were the guy with the lackluster skateboard bar.
So people are starting to request Zoo York product now. I mean, Zoo wheels and all that stuff.
Yes. So this is the thing is like everything falls apart. No one wants our Empire Wheel Company.
Oh, yeah, all that. Right.
And now there's no Illuminati. Right. Only people want Zoo stuff. And also, we go and in comes Harvey. And he's like, you're not doing this distribution deal. Right. He was like, you completely fucked up this whole thing. You spent money on trying to market.
You're taking away your focus from what's your bread and butter.
And then he's like, also, you're selling skateboard products, but you're selling like 25% of your income is skateboard hard goods. The rest of it are people who just love the name Zoo York.
They're buying the clothes.
Yeah. So at this point, our good friend, who will remain nameless, had some situation. So we got the marks back, and we were like, all right, we can go into the clothing line. Well, we decided we need to go into clothes. Clothing, if we do it right, we can facilitate and pay everybody who skates for us. Harold Hunter can get his check. Jeff Payne can get his check.
Sure.
And we can, get the clothing going on. And we had everybody throwing offers at us. We had people who were like, we'll give you X millions of dollars. We're like, oh, we want to go into clothes. Where are we going to make the clothes? Because who we're making them with now domestically is not good. Everybody who's in Australia and Japan, it's like, they want clothes, but like you have to kind of either allow them to go make their own clothes in their own country because it costs too much money to ship everything. Even with my history of Phat Farm, I've gone into, suddenly I'm in some other giant world of clothing manufacturing that I've never had any interest in, and I don't have any skill set.
Isn't it all different sizing as well, too? So you're sending different sizing. You'd be sending different sizing over there. You'd be making two separate things.
See how your bewilderment at this? That's how we were.
Right.
Because before this, we're like sort of making clothes, and it's all being made in sweatshops in the garment district in America. And we went to Japan and we met with some influential people over there who you would know, who asked us, please come and be part of what I'm doing, and so just to be 110% clear where we are, this is the late 90s. Nobody has boutiques where they're making billions of dollars.
Right.
The only person who ever has had their own sort of clothing shop that sort of works is Stussy.
Gotcha.
Phat Farm tried to do their own shop. It didn't work. At this point, if you want to make money in a serious fashion, you need to get into Bloomingdale's. You need to get into Macy's.
Big box.
Well, department stores.
There you go.
Yeah. So that's how you're a success. Stussy had their own boutique, and I'm sure it did some business, and they did sell to skate and surf shops, and that did some business, but their money was in, you'd go into Bloomingdale's and there would be the Stussy section. Right. And you start having to go and amass more real estate. The more real estate you can get in these department stores, then you can start making more money. And that is the business model since the 1920s.
Gotcha.
Everybody who ever made any Halston or, Polo or whatever, they all, at some point, you have to be in these things.
They do business at a different capacity, though, with like all those chargebacks and just things that you might not be prepared for.
I don't even know what you're talking about, chargebacks. I'm a skateboarder.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't know anything about this. And so on the one hand, you have investors who are like, here, we'll give you guys $60 million or whatever,
Sure.
And we're like, then what do we do? And then who do we hire? In comes Mark Ecko.
Right.
And they have a gentleman working with them, this Italian guy who used to run some other huge clothing company. And they're basically like, check it out. Like, we have infrastructure. We have an office building in Hong Kong. We have 400 employees. We have relationships with 60 factories in China. We have shipping companies. We have lawyers who know about international tariffs. What the fuck is a tariff? Let me tell you what a tariff is. If you make a jacket and you want to sell it, the tariff is 30%. But if you sell rainwear, because rainwear is a necessity, then it's only 15%. Yeah. So if you have a jacket you like and you spray it with a waterproof coating, suddenly you've made an extra $7 million by, and you're like, wow. You're like, what?
15% goes a long way.
50% goes a long way.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was basically it.
They're already killing it. Echo's already killing it.
They've gone to another level of clothing. They were like, it's like basically like we had the what's his fucking name? We had like the hot mixtape on the streets.
Sure.
And this is like Puffy coming to you.
Right.
Like, like, listen, this is how it's done, fam. And you're like,
got a catalog of
Right.
Yeah. And they wanted to get into business with us. And we had our, I'm not going to get into the business details, but we had a really good deal with them. Like whatever you could possibly want. And it ended up being that there was even no companies involved because we still personally, Rodney, Adam, and myself owned the company, and Mark Ecko, his sister, and their business partner owned that side.
That's amazing.
So we basically just grouped together as 6 individuals. It was no businessy thing.
No outside noise.
Interesting.
Yes, and this was all like we talked to Harvey, and he was like, "Listen, these guys are unbeatable. You could get the X millions of dollars and just fuck up and not deliver and make mistakes. And then because at this point, we're starting to get into Bloomingdale's. And Bloomingdale's is like, listen, I don't care the design of clothes you're making. The kids are going back to school September 10th. That means that August 20th, that shit has to be, because that's when their moms are buying them back to school clothes. So we need guarantees that you'll deliver. So if we buy 50,000 of this cargo short, you better be fucking delivering it on this date.
Right.
Every date that you miss, you're getting less money. It's fucking savage.
Yeah.
Wow.
And just like that, it was, and I was like up for the task. Like I was just like, fuck yeah. I was like, bring it on. Like, I don't care. And I like made Jeff Pang my like design assistant. And like, we were like fucking flying to Hong Kong, like all night long and like staying up. And we had like one Chinese girl, Suku, shout out to Suku, who was like our assistant. We're talking to all these Chinese, like, in a whole office space, an entire 2 floors, you know, of like people where I'm designing all night and like leaving stuff and they send it to factories and samples are coming back. And like, it was like real intense.
Wow.
But guess what? I'm not skating anymore.
Business took over.
And then there's like other factors that come in, which is like, have I done the Zoo York crew a disservice? Have I disgraced their honor?
Like you're moving too fast. You're getting all this stuff.
Our thinking of it, you know, and you have mixed reactions because some of the older guys would be like, you know, everyone fucking knows about this now. And then it's like, well, you guys were writing graffiti tags that said Zoo York. What was the point of that? The point is to get people to recognize the name. Right. So whatever we did, whenever we like, you know, anytime we went to any country, anytime we made a new website, even in the tags and the flyers, it was always like Zoo York is from a small group of skaters and graffiti writers in New York City. You know, Mark Edmonds, Andy Kessler honoring their roots, you know, that was, and we wanted to get that message out there. And I think we did, you know, I think that if we did not approach it that way, the whole world knows about Zoo York and this small group of kids better than any graffiti tag ever could be.
For sure.
But, you know, at a certain point, you know, it's like my grandfather... he used to have this thing because you know he was very proud of me that I went and did all this stuff because I was a fuck up, you know.
Yeah.
And he was like, he's a huge success in the auto industry, Chrysler, Dodge, and he was like, how does because I would talk about, you know, oh, I love skateboarding and this and that, and then I would just be like, this is killing me. How did the fat girl who ate too much cake get skinny? I don't know. She got herself a job at the cake factory because she loved cake so much she got fat. The only way you are going to ruin that is to make it your job. Then you will stop eating the cake because you hate disgusted. You hate it. Right. And I was like, oh, I'm in the cake factory now. Right. You know?
Right.
And, you know, that was part of it. And, you know, Echo came and there was politics and money and they had ulterior motives and wanted stuff and they're... You know, and there was also great shit that it enabled. We did skate maps.
Oh yeah.
I got to pay my friends great money and send them on trips. You know, buy them iPods and get RB, allow him to go do whatever the fuck he wants, and you know, it was awesome. You know.
So real quick though, I just want to clarify. So they came in as a separate entity and just dumped money into it and used
to make a really complicated thing, simple.
Yeah.
They did not I'm not sure where the deal ultimately went.
Okay.
But when we did Zoo York for so many years, we had, you know, when I went to Adam and I was like, yo, you got $20,000? Yeah, me and my guys from college.
Yeah.
So it's like right there, besides Rodney, me, and Adam, we have these other 6 gentlemen that are part owners of Zoo York,
splitting X amount of percentage.
Shares.
Right. Okay. Shares.
And this has continued throughout the years. So the way that we honored our investors was to have the owners of Echo buy them out for a very, very tidy sum, thereby doing right by all the people who invested in us.
Gotcha. So now Echo owns a shares of what you guys are doing. So they have a vested interest.
So it went from like, you know, it's like obviously friends, also family members invest to keep you going.
Sure.
You know, however, is Gramps, you know, we need to get $10,000 for something. Can you lend us? You know,
of course.
So all those friends and family, these people who did right by us, they all got their just desserts. And that was one of the best feelings of my life.
Bet.
And they were like, what? And you're like, pow, take this check. And they're like, oh my God, you know? And you're like, yeah. And then Echo had nothing to do with Zoo, but the owners of Echo were now financially invested in Zoo, and we're co-owners with us.
They got their eyes on you. You're under a microscope, right?
Yeah, and besides, whatever the shares and whatever the dictate of however a company is divided up and organized and run, when the person is like, it's like, I imagine if you have a movie and you've written a script and you've done all the work and you want to go have a studio make it, and they're like, yeah, come to Paramount. We've got a soundstage right here. There's a whole thing. Now you are every day in Paramount, and every day the guys who work at Paramount are there, and they're coming onto your set and they're checking everything out.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the same thing. As soon as there were like, the reason why we wanted to do them, which was that they have a mastery of global manufacturing, infrastructure, and trade. Once you've gone in, it's like you're at their mercy.
Well, on paper, it's like the perfect business partner. Right?
Yeah.
It's like they have everything.
Yeah.
So we could do anything.
Yeah, and there's even beyond whatever Echo did.
Sure.
There is once the monster gets to a certain size, once we've got pick a fucking big animal. Oh, we've got a little baby grizzly bear. We're gonna feed the grizzly bear, and now the fucking grizzly bear's 10 feet tall. You're like, I can't get enough food to feed this fucking grizzly bear.
Right.
So at a certain point, we're selling. Let's just pick any of the department stores. Let's say it's Bloomingdale's,
Okay.
and you're doing X millions of dollars with Bloomingdale's. Bloomingdale's has given you. In their 60 stores, they've given you 20 feet of real estate. And through the 60 stores, do the math. I'm not going to do the math.
Sure,
but now you are responsible for 250 square feet of Bloomingdale's Corporation.
Right.
And a lot of those are in places you'll never go to. Spokane, Cincinnati, nothing against those places, but like you're in New York, and who's buying this stuff are like people guys in Georgia. And then they come back with the sales reports and they're like, here's all the stuff we designed. And they're like, that's great. You guys are killing it. Also, we're going to need 6 different pairs of jorts. Jean shorts.
Yeah.
And you're like, Zoo York jorts? First of all, no one wears jorts. Oh, you're sadly mistaken, young Eli.
Dubs. Is what he said. Yeah, George. Yeah, they must have seen the right video.
We were there.
They were like, they would be like,
So now they're coming in telling you what to make.
100%.
For certain regions, right? Or
But it's because that store would have a buyer.
yeah,
Right.
And trust me, this is all an accounting issue.
Yeah.
And it's and this is gone, as you can see. The upside to all of this is that at our new deluxe Zoo York offices with a full digital video editing system and anything I ever want, it's there. We had like one little it was a bank. We renovated an abandoned bank and made it the Zoo York offices. And we had like a runway, like the entranceway. And, everyone would be skating there, like how you'd have like a skate session everywhere else. And it was just like, all my friends, all these people who I've known my whole life, they're all here and they're all getting fat paychecks, and like, Retta's in a fucking Cadillac Escalade and Zared's in a Cadillac Escalade,
Sure.
And it's like, fuck, let's make some jorts.
Yeah.
They're never going to do that, I'm never going to wear them, but I'll make the jorts. I'm never going to see anybody wearing the jorts, That was the thing, and I know you're laughing, but
I love it.
But we would have meetings, whatever, and it would be like, oh, we got to do that, and everyone would be like, jorts.
Yeah.
It became like we knew what it meant, jorts.
But you look at the PO order and you're like, oh, well, maybe we should make some jorts.
Yes,
Right.
but
Numbers don't lie.
yeah, and so that's how that all happened, and it facilitated a lot of great stuff, and I was doing a lot of great stuff. But then for me personally, I also started seeing a couple of things. There's only so many times you could write Zoo York. Nobody in the entire planet has written Zoo York more than me.
Okay, sure.
I hope no one ever beats that record. So, I got interviewed by somebody, and I remember I was at the offices, and the guy was like, you've been doing this for like 15 years or whatever, but like you're constantly making it fresh, and like, how do you readdress the same thing over and over again? And I think I said, like, nobody's written the words Zoo York more than me, but I take it as like a Zen lesson. You need to re-examine all the stuff in a new, fresh light. But I was just like, I'm going to be 50 years old. I'm going to own a skateboard company, and there's all this other shit I want. I never wanted to own a skateboard company. I never wanted to make clothes, and like I can't do this.
Right.
So I got out.
You got out.
Wow, just like that.
Yeah. I was like, guys, I'm going to get out. And the guys at Echo freaked out. Everyone freaked out. Like, what the fuck? Like, you can't leave us. And I was like, I have a team of all these people. They all know,
How to write Zoo York.
They all know how to write Zoo York super well.
Yeah.
Just adhere to the mission statement and the game plan, and it should evolve. It should just do it. And like, the Christian Jaquette, that's another great story. Like one of the other moments of my life where I was like, oh my God, I'll remember this on my deathbed. Deathbed moments.
Here we go.
I'm at Zoo. This is a little rewind.
Sure.
I'm at Zoo way in like 97, and people buzz our door. We'll let this guy in, and this like blonde German guy comes in. I'm here to see Eli. I'm from Germany. And I was like, what's up, dude? And he was like, I'm a graphic designer. And I was like, cool. I'm writing my master's degree on all of your Zoo York work. Here, check out my design book. And it was like, he went off on his own.
Right.
But it was like everything I ever designed.
Wow.
And he was like, I've come for your accurate graphics. I will need the Zoo York tag and I need the font so I can make it realistic. And I was like, wow, you can have fucking anything you want, brother. And gave it to him. He went back to Germany. His teacher called me up and was like, oh, do you want, we do in Germany, we have like honorary people to grade people's final paper. Do you want to be an honorary professor? And I was like, of course I do. And, A++.
Right.
Hell yeah. And then he was like, oh my God, I graduated. I was like, would you like a job? You want a visa? You want to move to New York?
Oh, wow.
And he was like, yes, I do. And I was like, you have yourself a job. We'll get you an apartment. And yeah. And that's like still to this day, one of my best buddies, I love that guy. And he was one of the victims of this, where he's like, you're leaving? And I'm like,
shit.
yeah, but I got you, know?
Yes, I feel good.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was like, you got this.
So what do you do when you leave? Do they buy your shares, or how does something like that work? Didn't Echo just acquire the whole company after a while?
Yeah. I mean, they were definitely like the thing that they wanted to do was they wanted to, like how we wanted to go make a distribution company. They wanted to acquire a bunch of various brands.
Yep.
So they wanted to do the same, and that's why they did it to Zoo. And their argument was like, look, we're going to try and do this with famous rappers and famous stars and other brands.
They had a business plan.
Yeah,
going, right.
and they were like, if we screw you over, then no one's going to want to work with us.
Right.
So we're like, that sounds cool. And then as the time went on, they tried to go make other clothing brands. I can't remember which ones they did, but they tried to do other clothing brands and never had any success with them.
Right.
So they would try to make a clothing brand, dump money into making product and dump money into advertising and just airball it. Right. So once that happened, it was like, all right, we got Echo, and Echo was kind of fizzling also, and then Zoo, and so it was like there was like it turned to like a toxic work environment. I feel really bad for my business partners who really Rodney and Adam really just got dragged through the ringer by like them just once trying to make it as bad as possible. Wow. And some good things happened. Nardelli, he came on to do the graphics and like completely got Zoo York and how it was supposed to be designed. There was some like weird year or two where they were like making weird stuff, but then like they got back on the program and they had Zared and they got the team together. And the Chaz Ortiz era happened. I have nothing to. I've met Chaz Ortiz once. I don't know. I don't associate him.
So you pretty much got out when Sal came in with his with his crew.
Yes,
right?
that was sort of the transition. Yeah,
gotcha.
They brought Sal in. He brought his team.
Aesthetics. Aesthetics.
Yeah.
Aesthetics. Yeah. Which I liked. I really liked what they were doing.
Man, they had a great team and everything. But in skating, you hear that like, all these guys are coming in. The other riders maybe didn't like that. I don't know. I mean,
there's always wacky politics, and I mean, and it's never, despite what you might concoct in your head.
Yeah.
You know, it's always a dysfunctional family.
Right.
The to the Ricky Oyolas, the Robbie Ganjimis,
Yeah.
the Ryan Hickeys, all the way to whoever was mad about whatever, you know.
Right.
As long as you have Harold Hunter in the van, everything will be okay
Everything-
most of the time.
Sure,
you know,
sure.
because he's going to make you laugh. And Jeff Pang was a tactician, you know. He was like, you know, someone wrote once in like some tour article, they were like, when your tour manager can skate better than you, you know.
Exactly. I think it's happened to every one of us, you know.
Yeah.
Well, not me, but
I remember seeing like Zoo York when it happened, when they did the switch from aesthetics to Zoo York, and then hearing about all the echo stuff, being on the West Coast, it'd be like, what's going on over there? Like, there's a lot of
kind
stuff.
of blurry. It was kind of blurry.
Yeah, just being over here, like, just not.
I mean, I don't really know because I was out.
You were out.
And like, and they were like, here's Sal. And I liked aesthetics. Speaking of aesthetics, I was like, you know, we have meetings and I was like, I love aesthetics. The aesthetics aesthetic is not the Zoo York aesthetic.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you guys are doing like fucking Euro style, you know, super slick stuff and it looks awesome. But like, this is like grime time,
Right.
piece of rat, you know?
Right.
You know, we have to figure it out. And I think there was a growing pains in there,
sure.
but I had my eye on, I wanted to, and also just to be clear, I just worked
Right. You were just doing you were focused on what you were doing.
in a very real way.
Yeah.
When I took the job at Trip, until I was like, I'm in 2003, where I was like, I'm gonna cash out and like be a consultant.
Right.
I was a workaholic, and I was doing before I started having assistants. I did all the skateboard graphics, all the ads, all the T-shirt graphics, all the wheel graphics, all the skateboard videos, all the music for the skateboard videos, all the.
You were editing those too?
Sometimes, it's definitely a collaboration with RB.
Yeah.
RB's so crazy talented that, we got him his own gear eventually. And, the mixtape thing, there's a whole, story behind this.
Oh, the mixtape thing's amazing.
Oh, I love
It's
that
amazing.
video. Yeah.
Because we never got any of the reason
Right,
why there's no DVD.
Right.
There's only the VHS is because
Music, right.
of the music rights.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We were about to go make the DVD, and Harvey was like, he was like, who has the rights to this? And we were like, we talked to Stretch Armstrong and Bobbito, and they talked to the rappers, and the rappers are cool with it.
Right.
They talked to, Method and everybody, and they all said, fine. They gave us the blessing. He was like, that's cool. What are they rapping over? Who made the song, the beat they're rapping over? On top of that, what's the song they sampled?
Yeah.
And we were like, are you fucking kidding me, man?
Hey,
and that
Harv is looking out for you.
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
Harv is, he was doing his thing.
he is.
He's doing his thing.
Yeah. So that's then after that, I went and we opened up a music studio and had other friends, and we started all making all the weird
Right.
Zoo York music that you would know from EST and Peep
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
and all that.
Oh, yes.
Looking back, I was going to ask you because you said you were doing everything. Right?
Yes.
But it sounded like you had a crew that was behind you, maybe more graphic designers and this and that. Were you were you controlling in that?
Oh, for sure. I was a tyrant.
Looking back at it now, would you change? Looking back, would you change the way that your tyrant ways?
You know what?
It sounds like it burned you out.
It did. It burned me out for sure.
Right.
Like
It might have burned other people out too.
I mean,
oh,
this
for
is true.
sure.
This is true.
I was not. I'm not an easy person to get along
Because
with.
sometimes letting go is the best thing.
I'm that guy now.
Now, right.
Yeah, I have more. You know what it is? God. Now that I'm here talking, it's like therapy.
Yeah.
This is therapy.
We've heard that before.
Do you know what this
We've
is?
Heard it before.
It's the Canon laser copier.
That's what this.
It is. It was like a superpower.
Right.
Because before, you would have to rely on other people to do various jobs, but that piece of technology was so empowering that if I had other friends who did graphic design work, and we would talk about like, oh, we got a problem, I'm going to do this for an ad, and they're like, oh, I'm going to go design this soup can graphic,
Okay, yeah.
and I'm like, all right, cool, and then like I would come back a day later, like, check it out. And they're like, what the fuck?
Like I was working on this.
Well, they're hardly started because they don't even have anything to show. So, people would could come in and be like, yo, there's a crazy trade show in Palm Beach and we need a catalog tomorrow, full color to go with your sales task force down there. And I'd be like, dope. I'm stopping the ad. See if you could get me an extra day, and I'm just gonna go and like make an entire catalog.
Crazy.
And I'd make the entire catalog and drink coffee from Dizzy Izzy's Bagels, and like just work all night listening to hip hop music and other weird music, and then hit print. How many? Enter print 1,000 copies. Print, go home.
Right.
Adam comes in the morning, 1,000 copies ready to go. Gives it to the guy, and they're out. Yeah. And when I first started getting people to do stuff, there just turned into, it was this, hey, would you go make this thing? Okay, yeah, thanks. And it needs to be like this, and you get the idea. Of course I get the idea. And then here's what I made. Oh my God, you're totally wrong. This is amateurish. This is wrong. You need to go back. You know what? Let me do it.
Right. We get the same.
Trying to give people the power, and it's just like it doesn't work out because your expectations are obviously up here, and not that they're not there, but they're not in the same wavelength.
Yeah, it's impossible.
But also, I feel like if you own something, like nobody's gonna love it as much as you do, right? Nobody's gonna like put in that 1,010% as much as you do.
I got to tell you something. That's partially it.
Okay.
But then it's also, if I don't do this, like I need to excel at this, or like Harold's he's going to be evicted. Like I need to do this for everybody else. And if I left right now, like when we did Kids, the only thing I've ever really wanted to do when I was a kid, when I was a little kid in New York, I was like, in my mind, I was like, Star Wars or Aliens. Like I want to go make movies. Right. That's what I went to school for that, to film school. And then doing Zoo York, doing Phat Farm. This is all good and fun. Sure. But these were opportunities that fell into my lap, Yeah. Inversely, like my mom got me to be like some famous filmmaker, video director's assistant. Right when like the Russell Simmons thing, right before it happened. Gotcha. She was like, this guy who was like a hero of mine wants to hire you to be his assistant. And I was like, oh, how much do I get paid? And they were like, nothing, but you get to be with this guy. Yeah. And I was like, that's cool. But then the next week it's like Russell Simmons and like, more money than you've ever made in your whole life.
I'm gonna
and I get to party with Russell Simmons in a bulletproof Rolls Royce. And like, I was like, of
really
course.
No comparison.
Yeah. And he's like,
passion is always there because you know what your true passion was. It's
exactly.
Right.
So when we made Kids, they were like, everyone was excited. And even like Harmony and those guys, they were like, Eli's like super talented. And like, I was talking to people at Miramax and shit like that and trying to develop something. But then it was like, if I go do this, who's going to keep doing the ads? Who's going to go make the board graphics? And there was like serious stuff. It's stupid, because it's not anything solid, but it was like, these producers want you to go and do this thing with them. And then it was like, Adam, can I go do this? He's like, no, we got a Thrasher ad to do. And I was like, fuck. And it's like, I have to sit here and do this Thrasher ad because if I don't do it, no one else is going to do it, And I was just like, fuck it. Like, I'm just doing this for everybody, That's kind of how I felt. And I was doing it for myself, and I was fortunate to do it. But there was always this like, the weight of this is all on my shoulders. Right. And it makes you,
taxes you.
I was up for the task, and I liked it. And listen, man, I'm so lucky, like I know, but obviously probably there's some skill set that I have, but to be in this kind of an operation and have this afforded to you and like have people respond to it, is great. But there's, you just burn your, like, again, Christian Jacat. I was looking for somebody who was competent enough so badly I imported him from Germany.
You were looking for your replacement.
Not necessarily my replacement, but just tried to build a team of people who can. And I've had the worst, the absolute opposite of that, where people come in and they're just like, sell you a song and dance, and you're like, come on, kid, and then suddenly you've hired an imbecile, and now it's like fuck, like I can't fire him because there's just too much stuff to do, and and then he turns in his work, and it's garbage. And then he's like, what do you think, Eli? And I'm just like, it's good. Have a nice night. And then he leaves, and then I go to his computer and I fix everything that he does.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was like, I built my own torture chamber.
Yeah.
You know? And it was an awesome torture chamber. Like I was definitely excited by it,
It's a great opportunity, shit, man.
Yeah,
You ran with it, and then you got to the point where you're just like, you know what? It's
time to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it worked. The machine worked. It ran. It was like sending your kid off to college, except I ran away to college.
How many years did you work on it for? From
when it started,
93,
92, 93, kind of like conceptually.
01, 02.
Yeah. Oh, to 2000, and I was out. I think fully like by 2004. I had nothing to do with
Oh
it.
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
What did it feel?
Maybe, I don't know.
What did it feel like to see the brand out and about when you weren't a part of it anymore?
When it was good, like before it went JCPenney, I was stoked. I was like,
Yeah. Pat on the back. Yeah.
It was dope.
Amazing.
It was like, they do like the Roaches commercial or I was like, I wouldn't do that, but they're off having a good time and doing their thing, and I liked what the guys were doing, and I could see my friends were still getting paid and still going and making this thing work, and skaters were still using it. It was still semi cool, and I was like, oh, that's great. And then it just kind of slowly, for multiple reasons, it just it's like the horse. It just got whipped to death.
I mean, listen, what you guys did for New York and the skaters out there is phenomenal, man.
Thank you very much,
Bro. Without a doubt. Mixtape? I mean, come on.
Looking
dude.
back in those videos, man, it's like a special time in skateboarding.
Oh my God.
Yeah, let's talk about the movie.
What movie's that? Oh, we were talking about.
Part of the reason why we're here.
I don't know. I don't know how long I've been talking.
Oh, we've been going for 7 hours. But listen,
Shit.
no, all the streets are silent.
Yes.
Because this is coming out. This is out now, pretty much.
Well,
And
now-
before we film this,
Yes.
So this is out now.
At this point, it is out.
Yes,
It'll be
yes.
available digitally for you to digitally download and own on, I think, September 7th, September 4th, or September 7th.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, like in a month. Yeah.
Yeah.
From when this is being shown.
So you've been working on this for a long time. I loved it. It was such a man. Let me tell you something, because I these stories need to be told. These stories need to be told on like a global scale, and we try our part here. But these stories, man.
I just can't believe you videotaped all that stuff, and no one was doing that.
I have
back
to
then.
say, it's pathetic how little I videotaped.
But you got all that
crazy.
Still have
stuff.
all the footage that way. Yeah.
Just everything from that era being documented. I don't know if you saw the Soleil Moon Frye.
She is a friend of mine, and I watched our doc with her right after I watched her doc.
And
That's sick.
I was blown away. Well, listen, I had a crush on little Punky Brewster. But,
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
She's the greatest.
Oh my God.
She used to hang out with all of us.
That's what I'm saying. And
Yeah,
for her to put all that stuff in it and give praise to Justin
Everybody,
Pierce and Harold
everybody,
Hunter
Peter,
and all that,
yeah.
Peter BC and everything. Like I was blown away.
Yeah.
I was blown away.
You didn't know. You were
I
just
had
watching
no
it.
idea. I'm like, oh, Soleil Moon Frye, little Punky Brewster. I want to watch this.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, here's New York. I'm like, this is fucking incredible.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so now your film, the documentary, I'm like, God, the story, thank God.
Yeah,
This shit needs to be told.
I'm lucky, as you pointed out, Kelly, that I shot it all, or whatever I have.
Exactly.
But it really is like Jeremy Elkins. The loop ended.
7 hours. No.
All right.
Go ahead,
So yeah, I mean, I'm lucky that I filmed everything,
Right.
but it was Jeremy Elkins' handiwork and his handling of the material that really
Brought it to life.
brought it to life. And when he started it, when I agreed to be like, all right, you want to go take all of my footage and go down this journey, it was a documentary about the making of the mixtape. It was about this. So that was really how this all started. And that's how he got like the Stretch Armstrong footage and then he went down the rabbit hole
I
because
was gonna
then
say, it kind of morphed into this whole new direction.
yes. So after he interviewed me, I think one of the first interviews he got was Moby.
That
And
circle, the circle of people that were in that at that time was insane.
I think it was, I think they were just kind of looking for people who were around New York in the 90s. And it was like very early on, and they were trying to pull favors. And someone was like, oh, I think I can maybe get an interview with Moby. And they said it to me, and I was like, oh, yeah, I gave that guy his first DJ job. And they were like, what? And I was like, yeah, he was a DJ at the nightclub that like Stretch Armstrong and all these guys went to. So when he went there, then they were like, oh, wait a minute, this even goes further back to this club, which I'm very happy about because Beasley, my partner, who is the reason why even Zoo York happened, Phat Farm happened. He died of brain cancer.
Oh man.
And it happened so quick. Like we were doing Trip and like dancing and partying around one day, and then he was like, I got brain cancer, had surgery, and then was like gone.
Wow.
And it just like, he's in the doc, and I was like, you need we found footage of him explaining how you need to get Kid Capri and and do a jam like this. And he just got really like, wow, this is so much deeper than how this just happened. This is the end result of like friendships that went past, for a decade earlier. And then, and then they started doing the interviews, and it was just at that point still, I was just like one of the talking heads.
Sure.
But then as they got people like Stretch Armstrong, and he was like, oh, Eli gave me my name. Then at a certain point, I was very sensitive about I was okay with giving the footage and then being a person who was talking about the movie.
Sure.
But then the Jeremy and Dana Brown, the producer, were like, look, we're going to make you the narrator because we need you. Everyone talks about you. So we're going to use you to motivate the story arc. And now you're not going to be a talking head. Okay. And I was like, so I don't understand. And they were like, well, your interview, because it's not narration, it's my interview. They just cut me out.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. They're like, we're just going to use your audio. And then when you say something like, oh, and then me and my friend started Trip, then they'll cut to somebody else who they did an interview with to back up my statement. And then when that happened, I was like, so how are you starting this? And they were like, Eli grew up in New York City. And I was like, so are you making a film about me? And they're like, yeah, it's kind of about you now. And I was like, so just to be clear, the film's about me now, and I'm not going to be in the movie. And they were like, yeah. And then I was like, all right. So, and like at that time I was like, talking about being a producer on the film because how could I not,
Sure.
And then I was just like, look, if you're going to make, I trust you guys, Jeremy's super talented, but I can't in good conscience, be the producer of a movie about my own life is just disgusting, just like distasteful. And I was like, I don't even want to watch it. Like you go and do what you have to do.
Okay.
And then when you get to a point where you think you're almost done, I'll come and watch it. And I'm only going to give you comments on inaccuracies.
Oh, gotcha.
Because I don't want to be like, oh, I don't like how I sound there. You should. I did this other cool thing. As you can tell, I talk too much. So I was like, I wanted to let this be Jeremy's thing.
Yes, and I think it was done amazingly because it was about you. It was about like your footage and what was going on at the time. But it was done. Like it would have been a totally different film if you were in it.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It would have been totally different.
I like how I'm sort of like the dungeon master. Like I'm just sort of there, and then I do something. I don't want to make that sound egotistical, but I was more so, and I even say it that this is about everybody else.
Yes,
yeah.
And this is what I loved about it though, because they took. Now that I'm finding out, they took your interview and used that as a voiceover.
Yeah,
because it didn't sound like you had a script and you were voicing over something that was happening at that moment. It was just this voiceover.
Yeah. Full disclosure. There's 2 or 3 times that there is like
you need to like
we needed to get from point A to point B.
Little transition.
A transition.
That's fine.
It. Yeah. But yeah, besides the transitions, the whole thing is just my interview, my original interview, the one that ends
with your little
still
fish
works.
eye.
Yeah. It's so that's how this whole thing came to be.
I love it.
Me too,
bro.
Yeah, he did a great job.
It turned out
It was
really,
really
good. I need that. Can they work on my life story? What's his name? Jacob? No.
Jeremy.
Jeremy.
Jeremy?
Sorry,
I
Jeremy.
got his name first.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Jeremy. Yeah, I'll learn it. I'll get it.
Jeremy the
No,
jeweler.
but they did a fantastic job.
I've had
so good.
I've had a couple of people who've seen the trailer. I'm not going to mention any names, but people you'd know who've been like, "Yo, bro, check this out," and have DM'd me like shoe boxes of videotapes, and I'm like, don't give me that shit. Like,
Right.
go find your own Jeremy Elkin. Like, like I could never make this.
Right.
You know, I mean, the only Jeremy. I have a guy called Only You Jeremy is what I tell Jeremy because he's one of a kind. You know, he's like he's his own guy and has a very distinct vision and view and aesthetic and value system. Okay. And like he really, is just has that great skill set. I'm lucky that he responded to what God. Thank God I gave Jade Raymond that Zoo York skateboard.
There you go.
Back in the day.
Wow, I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
To think about how
people
full circle.
cross paths
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah, we used to live in the same building
In the same building.
and didn't know that till just now.
I've probably been at the mailbox, opening my mailbox, and be like, "What's up, bro?" And you're like, "Hey, man, how you doing? Good."
Just so you know, guys, we probably lived together. How long did you live there? 4 years? 5 years?
No, I would say 2-3 years, maybe
2 or 3
Something
years.
like that.
I would see you skateboarding because you're an official skateboarder.
I was official.
You know what I'm saying? There's
Yeah.
so many people have skateboards now,
Right.
but you can just tell by someone just hopping on their board and getting out of the elevator.
Well, because there's like a shopping center down the road, so I would skate down there.
Yeah.
I mean, I was always just skating, skate down to the little market over there and the donut shop. I really like the donut shop.
Yeah.
Skate down there.
I intentionally don't. If I see any, there's a skater who lives in my building now too. Okay. A really cool dude who teaches down at the Venice Pier, Venice Skate Park. But like, I like intentionally don't ever want to like engage in skaters because I just like. I don't know. I don't want to bro down and like have like, especially someone I live with.
I can relate a little bit.
I would
sometimes I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to like.
You're definitely like, I'm gonna avoid that.
I cross the street sometimes when I see skaters because I don't want to. I don't know, right? I don't know if they know me and they don't know me, and I say what's up. Who's this weird dude saying what's up? And I'm like, oh shit, it's awkward now. I gotta go. Like, I don't know what's. I don't know what. How I avoid it.
There's a weird. God, how can I even say this? Growing up in New York City, the crass version of New York City building living etiquette is never fuck anyone in the building.
Okay.
When I was a kid,
Look at that.
when I was like a little boy, like whatever, like the super, when we would be like, oh, girls, he was like, listen, never fuck anybody in the building.
He
Rule
learned this
number
early
one.
on.
Because
Rule number one.
You're going to see them again.
Right. Right.
So I, like growing up in New York and in my neighborhood, like if a new restaurant opens on a way that I walk all the time, I won't go there.
Interesting.
And then I walk by it all the time, so the people in the restaurant get to know you, and they're always like, hey, and I'm like, what's going on? I can't go in, because what if the food sucks? Or I never go back. Inversely, as you said, I was a totalitarian maniac back in the day. I've been working at this my life. Sure. This is the journey.
Sure.
And I've been happily pleased. There were 2 restaurants directly on my corner. I've become close friends with one of the owners of the restaurant, and then the other one for some reason opened at noon and then just did like super packed as soon as dinner started, but like nobody was ever in there during the day for some reason, and it was banging, and that just turned into my personal office.
There you
Any
go.
meeting I had, I was like, meet me at this Italian restaurant.
Amazing.
And they knew me, knew what I liked. They'd sit me down. They knew I was coming in for a meeting. They were like,
you're Russell Simmons.
holy fuck,
exactly.
this is therapy.
Full circle. Here we go.
My God. Yeah. So that was the thing. A side joke about this is Retta was at my house the other day, and we went outside and walked my dogs, and ran into the skateboard instructor and his girlfriend.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, this guy skateboards, like, just keep walking.
Yeah.
And we walked by, I was like, hello. And then the guy was like, to Retta, like, aren't you a comedian? And I was like, oh no. And he was like, I don't know. Are you a skateboarder? And he was like, he had a Dogtown shirt on, like, come on, man. And he was like, yeah, the barracks. He was like, Wednesdays with Retta.
Right.
Yeah. And so I was like, all right, man, what's going on? We're friends now.
Yeah. No, man, it's tough in your building, right? Like I've gotten recognized in my building by, a guest or somebody's friend or whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, bro, no, in my building, in my elevator.
Yeah, they know.
Like, it's a weird thing. Like, are they going to knock on my door, ask for stickers now? Like, the fuck?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay.
I become cooler with it. Whatever, like, especially this film is a lot of Eli,
right.
And it's very flattering towards me.
Yes,
and I'm most pleased with myself of not being the tyrant, of being like, you know what, my gift to you is these tapes, this interview. You're an amazing artist. Go do what you want, and I'm okay with that.
Feels good. Right?
It does.
The release.
It is. You need to give up at a certain point. Right. You can't do that. It's tough. It's tough to sit with people and watch it. I watched it with Punky Brewster. It was embarrassing.
Really? Hey, tell Punky I said hello.
I will. She's gonna be so excited that you brought this up without me, setting it up.
I just saw it when I was watching your film.
Yeah.
I made that. I was like, man, because I had just watched that. What was it, Kid 90 or something?
About
a month or so ago. I was telling these guys, I'm like, you got to watch the Punky Brewster, Soleil Moon Frye. All the dudes in New York. Like, I had no idea that she was out there doing that.
Magic.
And she was filming everything, which was incredible.
She still does, by the way. She films everything.
With her iPhone now.
Yeah. Also, we're here in the faceless skateboard void, wherever this location is.
Right.
She is our neighbor.
Amazing.
Let's try to go and have an evening.
Let's do it, man.
right.
I was just listen, I don't fan out.
You might a little bit, so
I know.
Yeah.
It's Punky Brewster.
It's Punky Brewster, man.
She must hate that. I'm sorry.
No.
She embraces it.
She
seems
is
like the kind of person that would embrace it.
She's a gem. She's like, it's so. Listen, I know a lot of actors and people who've had the fortune and misfortune of being celebrities. She is just. She's unflappable.
Right.
She is genuinely who she is, and
Well, you see, you call somebody by their stage name or something. It's a little off-putting sometimes, I think.
But she has such a unique, special stage name, and I think that's why it's easy to use that.
Yeah,
for
sure.
Come on, man.
We used to fuck with her.
Well, even even in her video in New York, they're like, "Yo, Punky Brewster, we're doing drinking 40s." Like, I was like, "Oh my God, it's amazing."
We would go and we would wander the streets when you're kids, and we'd go into a crowded grocery store, and there's all these people checking out, and I went ahead of her. And I had my drink or whatever, and then they checked me out, and she's right behind me, and it's mad quiet, and I'd be like, "Thank you." Oh my God, it's Punky Brewster! And I'd run out, and she'd be inside being harassed.
Oh no, man!
All red and shit.
I love that. It's such a good show. I was a big fan of that show.
Yeah.
But hey, congratulations on the film.
Yeah.
I mean, congratulations on the whole career path.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so nice of you.
Yeah.
No, but it's people like you. You really did. You really did something for skateboarding.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Man,
And so we thank you for that.
Thank you for saying so. I mean, that was the goal. The goal was always to let everyone know that New York was relevant to the skateboard world, but then also to let the rest of the world know that skateboarding and graffiti and street culture was something that should be celebrated and not arrested for.
Exactly.
That was sort of the goal of it all. But yeah, it all worked out great.
You did it, yeah.
Well, you know what?
You pioneered quite a bit, bro. After seeing that documentary, I was like, what the fuck? The close ties that you brought together from skateboarding to hip hop to nightlife in New York. I mean, it's pretty relative. It's pretty insane.
It's insane.
I love connections and how that's how come I'm fascinated by you. We were in the same building, and then you bringing up Punky Brewster, that sort of stuff, and that's how relationships happen.
Yeah,
because however it worked, what's his name? KG from the Cold Crush Brothers, who just looked like, you're a dad. What's the dad doing here?
Right, and he wants the microphone? Oh, no.
Yeah.
This can't be good.
Yeah, but there's a thing I guess I'm just lucky to have the sensitivity to be like, you know what? Let's try this.
Right.
You want to get on the microphone, Gramps? Like, all right, let's see what you got.
Yeah. Imagine if you turned him down.
If I turned him down, I would never know what I had lost. And that is really the problem with saying no.
Right.
Because when you say no, you could be saying no to your future wife. You could be saying no to the guy who's going to give you your dream job, the guy who's going to give you the kidney replacement you need.
There you go.
You know, as long as you engage and say yes, you know, that's that is 110% why I am who I am and what I'm committed to.
And just not be a dick.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, you never know who's going to be in a certain position later down the line or whatever.
Exactly.
You know?
And you know what we were talking about,
Vice versa.
me not wanting to talk to a skateboarder or go to the restaurant.
Right.
It's like, you know, I know my shortcomings and I know where I want to improve on myself and become a better person. And, you know, I'm happy that Reddit was recognized. And now that I'm cool with it, you got to come have a reunion at R2.
I'm down. I'm down. I wonder if my neighbor's still there. Jesus Christ. He tried to teach me guitar one time. It was horrible.
There's a guy who plays the guitar who's there now, but I don't think he's from the South.
Really? This guy, hey man, come on. I'm going to teach you the guitar, man. Don't worry about it, man.
Whoa,
I'm gonna come over and
wait a
play the
minute.
guitar.
Tell me about his haircut.
He always wore like a fedora hat.
Oh, this is a different guy.
Different guy.
There was like a death metal guy who had like a mohawk dreadlock thing.
No, I didn't know
He's
that
like a
guy.
super talented guitarist. Yeah.
Well, we'll reminisce about our.
Yeah, all right,
about
we're
the-
wasting time
We'll
here.
go about the old building later.
Do you guys
know?
edit?
Yeah.
Okay, thank God.
I mean, we just close the gaps and do little things, but we don't really. I mean, we
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
change the whole show.
Good.
You know, we'll put this part first. And then
You didn't say anything too incriminating to, you know.
No,
edit
no,
out.
yeah,
You're
Yeah,
good.
we'll bleep
You're
out
good.
Bruno Musso's name. Huh?
No, he'll be stoked.
I know. I love Bruno. I worked with him. First met him with we were doing some Red Bull stuff. Great guy. Loved him.
Oh God, yeah.
Loved him, man.
Has been like that since he was 13.
That's probably the same guy. Yeah.
the same exact
Amazing.
grown ass man.
I love that.
Yeah. Capable, responsible, stand-up guy.
Love that, dude.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Listen, no, thank
Yeah,
you.
thank
Go
you.
check
Thank
out
you.
the film, please.
I've seen the. Oh, you've seen the.
Oh, I was looking at you. But, I meant to our audience. you
Yeah,
know.
I mean, listen, I would hope that if this is stuff you're interested in, I would.
All the streets are
appreciate
silent. Listen,
really,
I mean,
really
all
dope.
skateboarders watch a show. Everybody should go watch this.
Yeah.
You
film
really should.
because
You
it's-
really,
Straight
really
up.
It
should.
is literally the history of New York skateboarding and the crossover between hip hop and
Yeah.
all that stuff. It's fascinating.
The birth of Supreme.
The birth of Supreme,
Yes.
which came a year after the birth of Zoo York.
Yeah.
Which then they sold for $2.1 billion. Like, I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And what's crazy, even when you say it like that, James Jebbia, who owns Supreme, he was the owner of the Union Store, which is the store
Crazy.
that Russell Simmons, that Mark Baguda took Russell Simmons around and was like, look at this store, see these kids, these skateboarders,
Right.
this is what you need to go and make. Then he went back around and then got me and Ollie and Paul. And then even when James Jebbia was like, I'm going to open up a skate shop, all he had was the Stussy store
Right.
and the Union store. And like, look where that ended up.
Yeah.
you know?
I mean,
Just that close knitted of people of talent.
Yeah.
like,
I
in
know,
that
right?
Circle was just unbelievable.
Yeah, that's how come I said it's like Harlem Renaissance. It's like, you know, the San Francisco Hate Street.
yeah.
I can't thank you guys enough.
Dude, thank you. Wait.
bro.
Can we give you some 9 Club stuff to take home with you?
Duh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kelly, we do the honors, bro. We don't have much at the moment, but we got some mugs and we got some water thing.
May
maybe a
I ask you
candle.
some really obvious questions that I should know?
Please.
Why 9 Club? What does the 9 mean? It's a golfing?
No, it's just well, listen, Street League. I don't know if you ever watched the Street
Sure.
Leagues. They
Yeah.
have the 9 Club.
What's that?
I don't know.
When you
scoring
score,
system.
when you score
It's a little
over
scoring
9
system.
or 9.
Oh, all right. Then I guess I'm not paying attention as much as
We
I
just
should.
thought it sounded like a good. There's no really great story behind it.
Okay.
Actually, we just needed a name.
We basically looked at it like, all right, only special people get in the 9 Club. Here, anyone could pretty much be on the 9 Club.
Well, if you have a relationship with skateboarding, you know, not anybody. Right?
I have to tell you, it is honor and a highlight of my life to be here.
Hey, thank you,
That's
man.
amazing, bro.
Thanks for having.
So many of my heroes and friends have been on, and I've like watched
man.
them.
Appreciate that.
Muska and everybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
One day, Soleil Moon Fry.
Let's make that happen.
That'd be awesome.
Hey,
She'd do it.
I'm
sure
she's
she
tightly
would.
affiliated in the skateboard community.
I'd love to
so,
talk
you know.
to her about that,
Yeah.
man. She had a great little.
Look at this. What's this?
Anyway. Sorry, now I'm thinking about Punky Brewster, man. Here's our 9 Club mug that one of our fan, Sam Pearson, made for us. It's our burning mug. That's all of us on fire.
So skateboard.
Yeah.
God, I honestly, Pusshead, all that stuff is a huge influence on me. Yeah.
Another skateboarder that's extremely talented back in the day, Scott Kane. He was skated for Bootleg.
Oh,
Baker. He was
Yeah.
way ahead of his time, but he has a company now, Highland Peak, so we did a collab bottle with him.
What's Highland Peaks do?
They're bottles.
Oh, so he makes these bottles.
He makes his bottles, and so we did a 9 Club bottle with him.
I've always considered what's the best nozzle option.
But that's a good
That one is
though.
good.
There's so many different
There's so
nozzle
many-
options.
It really is.
Do you want to pour or suck? That's the thing.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of drink these things when I'm on an elliptical because
there
I'm
you go.
old.
Oh, so you need a straw, maybe.
I maybe need a straw.
We'll get you a little straw. You know the little straws with the little twists in them, little
straws,
loops.
yeah.
You mean a crazy straw?
That's what it is.
I named Stretch Armstrong.
Crazy
I know
straw.
what a crazy straw is.
And listen, this may sound weird, but we do have candles here at the 9 Club. We do. People sell. We make different scents and everything. This is the LD candle. He's a golfer. He loves to golf. Justin Eldridge, and this is the Fairway.
And what's
Smells
it smell like? Cut grass.
Fresh cut grass. There
you go.
There you go. There you go.
Oh,
Is it kind of-
yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
LD. Yeah, I'm but there's something not, there's something else.
Let me get a smell. Let me
Yeah, let's smell that.
It doesn't smell quite like cut grass. There's something a fruit lighter,
Let me smell. That looks
fruitier
like for you.
notes.
It does have it. It
Yeah, a
doesn't
little
quite
fruit note.
get
Let me
the-
see.
We almost made Zoo York cologne.
Really?
Yeah,
Interesting.
It's probably the single most profitable product you could make.
Yeah, we made Diamond Cologne and it wasn't too good of a fuck. It didn't do too well.
If it hits,
If it hits,
hits.
you're gonna kill it. You have liquid in a bottle. Come on.
Liquid in a bottle.
my concept was that the scent would smell different depending if you were sweaty or not. Because I figured if you were out to shower and clean and put it on,
It would
you
smell
would
a
be
certain-
it would smell a certain way. But if you went skating, the male pheromones would change
it up a bit.
Change it up a bit.
It's like the color change shirts,
Exactly.
except in the smell.
Except I don't.
Hyperclone.
Hypercologne.
Hyper. What was it called?
Hypercolors.
Hypercolors.
That's
Yeah.
what it was.
Did you?
Zoo York Hypercologne.
Oh man.
Change your smell throughout the day.
Did you see the Halston? What's his name? Who's the guy who plays Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Oh, I don't know. You're asking the wrong guy.
I don't know his name.
Mark
Or-
Hamill.
No.
Mark Hamill.
What's his name? Come on, guys. I'm friends with his daughter. I can't.
Uh-oh.
Oh, her name's Claire McGregor. Ewan McGregor.
Ewan McGregor.
McGregor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
So he did this movie about Halston, the great, gay New York City designer through the 50s, 60s, 70s until he dies. And he almost, it's spooky. He almost has the exact same trajectory as Zoo York. He actually ends up getting his name taken from him by a bigger company, ends up in JCPenney.
okay.
Oh, dude.
Really spooky. The reason I bring it up is because he makes a cologne that was very popular.
Okay.
It was a huge missed opportunity for me.
We
Yeah,
make
well-
9 Club cologne, dude.
Yeah.
Listen, we're going to steal your idea.
Go for it. You know how many ideas I've had stolen from you? Go for it.
Well, this just be another one.
be
9
a
Club
part-
Hypercologne.
He could be a part of it too. He could help.
No, it's okay. Just kidding.
I would be honored if you guys made a cologne and I was the inspiration for it. That's all I need.
There we go.
Call Eli.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you could help fund it.
Done.